Hello, my friends. Hello. I am here with two of my actual friends, Nettles, and Sean MacArthur. Say hello, Nettles.
Hello, hi chat. It's me again.
It's her again. It's her. It's her. And my IRL friend, having his who'd been to this very studio and hung out with me in the real, Sean MacArthur. Welcome to the program, my friend.
Yeah, I had to get out there, plant some bugs. Great to be there. Long time listener, first time caller. Been a fan since this was just a podcast with a more blasphemous name. And a couple episodes in, I got recommended by Spotify, and I've been lurking ever since until I crept into your DMs.
Nice. Yes, I was crept on. I'm crept on all the time. I like it though. Cause
Yeah.
I'm a creep. Okay. So, hi. Yes, I do have my Lannister drip on here. Got my gold tracksuit. I do have the matching bottoms. This is how we're doing this. So,
If Missy Elliott was a Lannister.
uh,
Um,
yeah. Okay. You said it, not me.
I've
So
also got the Lannister drip. You know how we do.
we do know how you do. I just skipped. I was so excited about it having a track jacket that I skipped right by. But of course, Nettles never failing to represent. And Sean has a cool Superman shirt, which
And I couldn't find my eye patch. I have a lot of props. None of them really fit. And I've broken immersion, and I apologize for that.
well, the thing is, Jaime Lannister, of course, is the closest thing to a sort of Man of Steel Superman archetype in the sense that the way everyone looks up to him as this, just golden, undefeatable knight. And yet, of course, he is tainted with the title Kingslayer, which we will certainly talk about. And just to give you guys an idea of what we're doing today, we have a series of topics. We're talking about the Lannister family, primarily the main four Lannisters, Tywin and his three kids, Jaime, Cersei, and Tyrion. But of course, Kevan and Lancel and Joffrey will make appearances here and there. I have some discussion topics, and then I have a lot of quotes. The hardest part of preparing for this stream was the fact that there are so many good quotes. There's so many. We're not going to have time to read them all. And I don't know which ones we will do, but I'm allowing the conversation to flow, and I will grab the quotes as they seem appropriate to whichever topics we're on, and that'll lead to other topics. This family is a mess. They are a beautiful mess, and that's why we love them. They are some of the most compelling characters in the story. So, with that being said, let me just read through the topics here to give us an idea of some of the directions that we could go, and I will allow. Actually, I think I know where we want to start. I've got one of your polls, Sean, will make a good starting point. But yes, the Lannisters, they are more kingly than kings. That is how they appear to us at first, especially when they're first presented to us. A discussion topic, laughing at the lion, talking about Tywin's generational trauma, his relation to mockery, and how that affects all of his children. Following Tywin's bad example, not only his kids, but like John Connington and other people like that. Jaime's disillusionment, the way that he relates to his knightly vows and his role as the Kingsguard, the cynicism, that's a big topic. Jaime's abuse of Cersei, which is something I kind of was sleeping on until we did a couple of Jaime chapters, and we just like saw the way that he was dealing with Cersei's abuse and internalizing it and sort of justifying it on the spot. It's classic abuse victim stuff, but you just don't think to look for it with Jaime. But yes, it's there. And then we've got Jaime and Cersei, their incest relationship and how that relates to like Narcissus and vanity and things like that. Cersei's struggle with her gender role. That's a huge and obvious one to deal with. The fact that she's born first, but Jaime has all these things that she doesn't simply because of sex. Tyrion being Tywin writ small. Obviously, that's a big one to talk about. Story trajectory versus character arc. And Sean's got a couple notes about the original path that George had planned for these characters and how that changed as he was gardening and writing and stuff. The idea of a redemption arc as it concerns Tyrion and Jaime, who have done some pretty dark things. What is a redemption arc? we've got some interesting stuff to explore there. Definitely a subtle topic. And then in relation to the Narcissus and stuff, lions and killing their reflection, Reigns of Castamere, Tyrion killing Tywin, and even the Valonqar prophecy. And then there's also Gilded Hands hiding rot and death, which I'll just boom. Now it's a bullet point. Look at that. So yeah, there's stuff about Jaime's losing his hand. Both Tyrion and Tywin have been a hand, so there is some cool hand symbolism going on there. It has to do with flowers and rod and all that stuff. So I will start with one thing, and then I will allow you guys to pick the next one. The idea of the Lannisters being presented as kings is interesting, because this is, if you remember, the first glimpse we have is, I think it's Jon's chapter, isn't it, when he sees the Lannisters ride into Winterfell?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Jon Snow says, Jon found it hard to look away from him. This is what a king should look like, he thought to himself as the man passed, and that's Jaime. Pycelle says, I've served 6 kings, but here before us lies the greatest man I've ever known. Lord Tywin wore no crown, yet he was all a king should be. And then, Sean, read this Stannis quote here to Melisandre.
Oh, okay. No, which?
Can you see it on the screen there?
Oh, yeah. I remember the first time my father took me to court. Robert had to hold my hand. I could not have been older than 4, which would have made him 5 or 6. We agreed afterward that the king had been as noble as the dragons were fearsome. Years later, our father told us that Aerys had cut himself on the throne that morning, so his hand had taken his place. It was Tywin Lannister who'd so impressed us.
And so there you have it. There's this sort of consistent presentation of the Lannisters as Superman, sort of like the Man of Steel, the perfect, impeccable, no chink in the armor. But of course, there's so much more, beneath the surface. But at first glance, that is how they appear. And I've actually got one about Tywin's armor. We're going to get into this whole Red Fork battle because there's some fascinating stuff going on with that. However, this is a short quote that about sort of Tywin's presence on the battlefield. This majestic lion of the rock that he is. And so it says, his lord father took his place on the hill where he had slept. Around him the reserve assembled, a huge force half mounted and half foot, 5,000 strong. Lord Tywin almost always chose to command the reserve. He would take the high ground and watch the battle unfold before him, committing his forces when and where they were needed most. Even from afar, his lord father was resplendent. Tywin Lannister's battle armor put his son Jaime's gilded suit to shame, which Jaime just made the impression on Jon of looking like a king, but no, here's Tywin's armor. His great cloak was sewn from countless layers of cloth of gold, so heavy that it barely stirred even when he charged, so large that its drape covered most of his stallion's hindquarters when he took the saddle. No ordinary clasp would suffice for such a weight, so the great cloak was held in place by a matched pair of miniature lionesses crouching on his shoulders as if poised to spring. Their mate, a male with a magnificent mane, reclined atop Lord Tywin's great helm, one paw raking the air as he roared. So this is armor that's not really meant to go into battle, per se. All 3 lions were wrought in gold with ruby eyes. His armor was heavy steel plate enameled in dark crimson, greaves and gauntlets inlaid with ornate gold scrollwork. His rondels were golden sunbursts. All his fastenings were gilded, and the red steel was burnished to such a high sheen that it shone like fire in the light of the rising sun. So
it's a lot. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's giving me big vibes of the very fashionable, fabulous, queer-coded villain.
Really?
Yeah, I mean,
Scar and Jafar.
Long time. Yeah, Captain Hook, all of them.
Okay. This reminds me of like eccentric actors and rich people who say that like you have to be what people expect you to be. So I feel like he's kind of like overdoing it because he kind of has to, because small folk and people are so stupid. Like they don't know you, but if they see what you're wearing, they could assume that you're Tywin.
No, this reminds me of one of the topics in the rap battle, which is the real thing that we want to talk about today between Drake and Kendrick Lamar, of course. No, but part of this is exposing fraudulent wealthy behavior, right? There's something about, oh, the jewelry that you bought and tried to set, basically to show somebody else up, you actually returned it or something like that. Like when you're rich and you're trying to throw money around, like, it's for reputation. And so the last thing that a rich person who's rides on their wealthy reputation can afford to do is to look cheap. And so Tywin can't show up in anything less than a just ridiculous over the top. It's like, this has got to be, looks like a guy who shits gold. This is what he looks like.
Well,
it's a symbiote. Go ahead, Sean.
Oh, appreciate it. So another thing I was going to say is one of the quotes that we pulled was, actually, I don't know if we pulled it, but a lion does not concern himself with the opinions of sheep, yet he's definitely doing this for the sheep. A lot of lion right there.
Well, there's so much hypocrisy with Tywin, so that's a good catch. We'll be looking for more. Go ahead, Nettles.
Yeah, just on the similar vein of what Sean said, is it's a symbiotic relationship because, these rich people, they're putting on a show, but it's because the public or their audience demands it.
So this is Melisandre's trappings of power.
Yes.
Right. And she's talking to Jon like, you can't ignore that. People want a show. You got to do it. Blah, blah, blah. Jon's like, too real for that, So there you go. So this is political. It's a political tool in the end. It's a vanity, but it is in the end a sort of a calculated thing that he's doing. We will talk about Tywin leading from the rear and putting his son in the vanguard. Like I said, we will get to the Red Fork thing. It is a fascinating bit of discussion there. But Nettles, where would you like to go first?
Let's see. This just the second one. I'm just going to be obvious. It's too good. It's
good place to start.
Meaty. It's probably my favorite thing because I'm a Freudian. I'm not a Freudian. That was too dramatic.
And just to read it out loud, we're talking about laughing at the lion and the way that laughter and generational trauma works. So this is kind of the story of Tywin's rise and stuff like that. I do have that quote ready. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say that, for me, I do believe that we are who we are because who our parents are and who our grandparents are, and things skip a generation. I became sporty because my mom was girly. You either want to be the opposite of what your parents are, for whatever reason, or you just end up being the same. Choose your poison. So I just love how George wrote this Lannister generational saga.
So Sean, you had a basic idea of how each kid is dealing with this because they all pick up on it, right? Jaime he does the whole I pretend not to care about the opinions of the sheep thing. Cersei is, and Tyrion both have more the tendency to remember everyone who laughs at them and plan revenge. Right? They both do that. They both ideate revenge a lot.
Yeah, they're all, it's the, I think you're referring to the following a bad example type thing. And you get it with Cersei where she's taking the brutality and the never forget a slight and never get laughed at. But the reasoning behind it is lost. Tywin is a hypocrite a lot, but there's usually a pretty good reason for a lot of the things that he's doing. The brutality is very specific so that, people don't cross him, but then it's not senseless in the way that it often is with Joffrey and sometimes is with Cersei. He has a quote where he says, if your enemies defy you, you serve them steel and fire, but if they go to their knees, you help them back to their feet. Otherwise, no one will bend the knee. So there's a reason behind what he's doing, whereas there is not necessarily a reason for it other than Cersei is pissed off. Then with Jaime, like you said, pretending not to care, cynical, glib, I'm above all this, I don't care. And it's kind of a response to how monstrously unfair he has been treated for doing what was generally a good act in killing
So pause the Jaime one because that's too delicious to get into. But you just mentioned the way that the thing that Cersei is missing about Tywin. Tywin calculates and he like sort of makes his move when he knows that he can win. So when he went to do the Reigns of Castamere, he obviously figured out what his plan was ahead of time. He's like, oh, they're all going to be in the mines. I can seal it up and this and that. He brought enough overwhelming force and he pulled it off. With the Freys and the Red Wedding, again, like he realized that he could count on Walder Frey's revenge, and knowing the layout of the twins and the way the vulnerability of the Stark army, he felt confident that the plan would work, and it did. Whereas Cersei, she sort of just flails wildly to try to do things, and she's not always choosing the right moments to be an evil psychopath. So as long as we are adopting the mindset of trying to be an effective, authoritarian warlord or whatever you want to say, which is basically what these High Lords are, you have to choose your moments. So Tywin is at least better at assessing his advantages and strengths and picking those moments, whereas Cersei just seems to be missing that, right?
Well, and there's a funny criticism of Tywin. Is like it really is all of it very well calculated. He makes sure that he wins at any cost, but it's like, how you have Captain Crunch and then Captain Crunch berries and then Oops All Berries is like you have this book of Tywin strategies, and it's never that he won some amazing battle. It's kind of like Oops All War Crimes.
I made a joke about Larry Strong in House of the Dragon. Like, he tends to rely on arson. He's got a problem. Let's burn my sorriest house. We'll burn down my family at Harrenhal. Tywin definitely is like, well, why fight a battle when you could do war crimes? That's just so much more effective. So he's taking advantage of other people's stuffy sense of honor. And doesn't Cersei say that to Ned, like about his honor being like an iron suit? Or no, it's Varys who says that to Ned. Yeah. That his honor is like an iron suit and he can't move and stuff like that. So the Lannisters are not so encumbered. They are funky fresh and ready to move and do war crimes and stuff. So,
yeah.
No, your thoughts, Nettles?
No, I'm just agreeing. Yeah, very any means necessary. Land the clever. What is honor? What is that?
Never I've got queued up here is Kevan Lannister coming to Tyrion when he's in jail, and this is part of the origin story with Tywin throwing out his father's concubine, and the walk of shame and stuff. And the rest of that comes in Cersei's inner monologue when she begins the walk of shame. So let's read this. It's a short bit. Do you want to do Tyrion or Kevan, Sean?
I'll do Tyrion.
Okay, I will do Kevan. And I apologize. I don't think there's any women in the jail cell down here. But it's a short quote, so just hang tight, and we've got plenty of Cersei coming. So, and also some Catelyn. I want to get to the Catelyn Jaime, the moment where Catelyn comes and sets Jaime free, and Jaime talks about Brandon and all that stuff. So it's got some tasty stuff in there too. But when his uncle, this is actually, why don't you start if you're doing Tyrion? Oh no, this is Kevan. When his uncle called that night after supper, his manner was cold and distant. He thinks I did it too. Do you have witnesses for us? Sir Kevan asked him.
Not as such, no. Unless you found my wife.
His uncle shook his head. It would seem the trial is going very badly for you.
Oh, do you think so? I hadn't noticed. Tyrion fingered his scar. Varys has not come.
Nor will he. On the morrow he testifies against you.
Lovely. I see. He shifted in his seat. I'm curious. You were always a fair man, Uncle. What convinced you?
Why steal Pycelle's poisons, if not to use them? Sir Kevan said bluntly. And Lady Merryweather saw...
Nothing. There was nothing to see. But how do I prove that? How do I prove anything penned up here?
Perhaps the time has come for you to confess.
No. Sorry. Even though the thick stone walls of the Red Keep, even through the thick stone walls of the Red Keep, Tyrion could hear the steady wash of rain. Say that again, uncle. I could swear you urged me to confess.
If you were to admit your guilt before the throne and repent of your crime, your father would withhold the sword. You would be permitted to take the black.
Tyrion laughed in his face. Those were the same terms Cersei offered Eddard Stark. We all know how that ended.
Your father had no part in that.
That much was true, at least. Castle Black teems with murderers, thieves, and rapists, Tyrion said. But I don't recall meeting many regicides while I was there. You expect me to believe that if I admit to being a kinslayer and a kingslayer, my father will simply nod, forgive me, and pack me off to the wall with some warm woolen small clothes.
He hooted rudely. That's a great line. Hooted. Tyrion hooting. Naught was said of forgiveness, Sir Kevan said sternly. A confession would put this matter to rest. It is for that reason your father sends me with this offer.
Thank him kindly for me, uncle, said Tyrion. But tell him I am not presently in a confessing mood.
Were I you, I'd change my mood. Your sister wants your head, and Lord Tyrell at least is inclined to give it to her.
So one of my judges has already condemned me without hearing a word in my defense. It was no more than he expected. Will I still be allowed to speak and present witness?
You have no witnesses, his uncle reminded him. Tyrion, if you are guilty of this enormity, the wall is a kinder fate than you deserve. And if you are blameless, there is fighting in the north, I know, but even so, it will be a safer place for you than King's Landing, whatever the outcome of this trial. The mob is convinced of your guilt. Were you so foolish as to venture out into the streets, they would tear you limb from limb.
I can see how much that prospect upsets you.
You are my brother's son.
You might remind him of that.
Do you think he would allow you to take the black if you were not his own blood and Joanna's? Tywin seems a hard man to you, I know, but he is no harder than he's had to be. Our own father was gentle and amiable, but so weak his bannermen mocked him in their cups. Some saw fit to defy him openly. Other lords borrowed our gold and never troubled to repay it. At court, they japed of toothless lions. Even his mistress stole from him. A woman scarcely one step above a whore, and yet she helped herself to my mother's jewels. I like how Kevan's actually mad about this. I kind of forgot. Do you want to jump in with any commentary right here real quick, Nettles, before I dive into the rest of this?
No, dive right in.
We've excluded you based on your gender here. It's very Cersei.
Yay! I love it. Feels great.
Method.
Go ahead. What now?
No, I was just saying it's method acting.
That's it. That's it. We're getting her warmed up. We're allowing her to get some pent-up rage developed.
It's been like 1 minute.
And she helped herself to my mother's jewels. It fell to Tywin to restore House Lannister to its proper place, just as it fell to him to rule this realm when he was no more than 20. He bore that heavy burden for 20 years, and all it earned him was the Mad King's envy. Instead of the honor he deserved, he was made to suffer slights beyond count. Yet he gave the Seven Kingdoms peace, plenty, and justice. He is a just man. You would be wise to trust him. And so here we're talking about Tywin being hand for Aerys. This is the Kevan Lannister view of Tywin. We don't see the war crimes. They're not here. And this is just effective, results-based, we were laughed at and now we're not. Aerys wasn't running the kingdom and then Tywin ran it. So that's very utilitarian sort of rating scale that we're applying here. Yeah.
Tyrion blinked in astonishment.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, no. Sorry. I was just being goofy. Tyrion blinked in astonishment. Sir Kevan had always been solid. Am I? Yeah.
Solid. Stolid. What's stolid? It just sounds like you can't take a poop or something. I don't know.
No, I was, God, I need glasses. But yeah, I just thought I was reading the same word twice, but no, solid, stolid, pragmatic. He had never heard him speak with such fervor before. You love him.
He is my brother.
I will think on what you've said.
Think carefully then, and quickly. Okay, so let me see if we want to go any further. I think that is what I want to read for now. Yeah, there's one more witness, and then that's, yeah, I've got the Shay testimony ready. I've got the Oberyn thing, but let's actually, yeah, let's read the Oberyn quote. No, let's not. Let's go to the rest of this story about Tywin. It comes in Cersei's chapter with the beginning of the Walk of Shame, and that way we can get Nettles in on this and stick with the thing we're talking about. And this will be Feast for Crows, yes? Walk of Shame.
We bring you in just to ultimate shame.
This is my favorite Cersei scene. Everyone's like, oh, I feel so sorry for Cersei. I'm like, for what? Like, this is easy. And but yeah.
Oh, maybe it must be Storm. It is Storm. So much happens in Storm.
Yeah, it was Storm.
It's a very eventful book. That's why it's Storm. You know, a lot of things happening. Okay, why not? What's going on? Is it actually dance? Is it one of Cersei's dance chapters?
The Walk of Shame?
Oh, must be. This is why we should write down the book under the quote. Yes, it is. Yes,
See,
it is.
I tried to kind of match it up to the timeline, and Feast and Dance are in the same timeline. It drives me nuts.
No, yeah, it's a lot happens in King's Landing. So let's see here.
Oh God, Dario costume. It's not actually a Dario costume. It's a Benjen costume.
But I do want to make a comment just about that Tyrion in prison scene. It just reminds me that this is like a dance of the lions, a Lannister civil war almost. Like the first, we have the War of the Five Kings, which is kind of like Starks against Lannisters. But then like the second half of like this story is Lannister against Lannister. And because Cersei is so focused on getting Tyrion killed and going through this whole trial thing, all these regions are able to channel House Tyrell and grow strong. Dorne is able to do all that they're doing. Why don't the Lannisters have spies in Dorne, little birds telling them what's going on with their daughter? Cersei, you said you love your daughter. Why is it no one's telling you what's happening over there? The North, the Riverlands, everyone's doing their own thing. The Lannisters can't focus on them because Tyrion is in prison.
Well, so it makes you wonder what kind of informant networks that Tywin had in place that were lost when he was unexpectedly murdered by Tyrion and didn't have time or trust to pass them off to anyone. Like Pycelle was his agent. He probably had other informants. The tunnel to Chataya's was probably his, or he either used it or had it made. That might not have been just for, like, if he's doing stuff like that, he's got informants, like he probably had a hold on Varys and Littlefinger and stuff like that in a different way than some of the. Well,
but Tywin's alive at this point. When Tyrion's in prison, he's alive. I'm just saying, this dance of the lions is a distraction, and it's causing the Lannisters to lose their grip on power. They start losing their grip a little bit before Tywin dies, and it's because of stuff like this.
So let me give the chat a little love. First of all, Northern Tommy corrects me. I said murdered, justly executed for his crimes by Tyrion. That's Tywin's death. Morse Code Food. Love Sean's Dario 1 costume. It's even book accurate. Look at those stunning Tyroshi colors. Love how Nettles has gone full Dragon Queen. Yeah, she wasn't there already.
It's multi-purpose. It's actually Euron, Dario, and Benjen.
Mm.
I see what you did there. So, Nettles, why don't you start right here where it says part of her still yearned for Jaime to appear and rescue her.
Okay,
And I will turn the pages for you.
thanks. Part of her still yearned for Jaime to appear and rescue her from this humiliation. But her twin was nowhere to be seen, nor was her uncle present. That did not surprise her. Sir Kevan had made his views plain during his last visit. Her shame must not be allowed to tarnish the honor of Casterly Rock. No lions would walk with her today. This ordeal was hers, and hers alone.
I will just quickly say that Kevin is kind of fooling himself if he thinks this isn't somehow bringing shame onto House Lannister. Like, what do you guys think of Kevin, like, agreeing to this?
His hands are tied. He
Yeah,
thinks
because of the politics and the High Sparrow and what Cersei did to empower him.
yeah. And
Next.
he knows that Cersei deserves this. It's like, are you gonna stick up for your brother who did the crime as he's being carted off to jail? Like, what can you say? He did those things.
Do you think
You know?
well, maybe the question is, would Tywin have allowed this?
Maybe he would not have, just because he's always kind of had a soft spot for Cersei. I think kind of like Jaime, he also did not really notice who she was. He's lying to himself about certain aspects of her. Just in the way that he raised her, brought her to court, like thought that she was going to be a good match for Rhaegar, married her to the king. And then of course, she goes off and, commits a whole lot of incest and is cheating on Robert, and that's not something that Tywin would have been cool with, and frankly it's something that he should have known or noticed. And Kevin knows and noticed, Tyrion knows and noticed, Varys,
You're
Baelish.
right. Yeah, there's definitely a blind spot there. So maybe the better question, and I'll turn this to you, Nettles. How would Tywin have handled Cersei being imprisoned by the High Sparrow?
Yeah, absolutely not. Like, first of all, there's no world that Tywin's alive and the sparrows take power. But if he was sick in a coma and this happened and he woke up, absolutely not. Tywin, who started a war for ugly-ass Tyrion, of course he's gonna save Cersei from this. His baby girl, his prize pony that brought
He's
him
like
a
sending
kingdom.
Gregor Clegane to the Sept.
Stop it.
He's got his box, and again inside it, oops, all war crimes. So
The
he's
sparrow died in his sleep. He was poisoned by his enemies. Listen, it never got to no.
very
Okay.
very Putin.
True.
And it's and it's Cersei's own fault that this happened. She's the one who armed the Faith Militant and all that. But it's funny because you mentioned kind of Lannister civil war, and
That's what this is.
it's the Cold War section of it, and if we go back in Lannister history, you see times where like various Lannisters were kind of fighting for power. There's kind of an implication that Tytos' father might have poisoned his older brother somehow in order to take power.
Yeah. There's like rumblings of that. Yeah.
Of course, the Reigns of Castamere itself is an implication of Lannister civil war, because the Reigns are just the Lannister sigil inverted, almost like a bastard cadet branch would do.
And
like
there's doubtless been many intermarriages. So we know how this goes. So I have to think, although Sean, you're right that like Tywin never would have empowered the Faith like Cersei did to begin with and created the situation. Tywin does not allow mistreatment of any Lannisters. Like, he went to war for Tyrion, and then once Tyrion boxed himself into where he's, looks like he killed Joffrey, Tywin is willing to cut Tyrion loose at that point, as far as you're no longer part of the family, you're going to be sentenced to death or whatever. He kind of doesn't have a choice, but also he's got that weird relationship with Tyrion where he wishes he could deny that he is his son. And so it's easier for him to do that. I don't think there's any way in hell Tywin allows Cersei to be walk of shamed. No chance. None. And I think the chat agrees with that. But go ahead and carry on, Nettles, with the quote. That was good to hash out, though.
Yeah. Septa Unella stood to her right, Septa Moel to her left. Septa Scalera behind her.
Oh, I'll do the Septas. I'll do the Septa voices when they come up. Go ahead.
Okay? If the queen should bolt or balk, the three hags would drag her back inside, and this time they would see to it that she never left her cell. Cersei raised her head. Beyond the plaza, beyond the sea of hungry eyes and gaping mouths and dirty faces across the city, Aegon's high hill rose in the distance, the towers and battlements of the Red Keep blushing pink in the light of the rising sun. It is not so far. Once she reached its gates, the worst of her travels would be over. She would have her son again. She would have her champion. Her uncle had promised her. Tommen is waiting for me. My little king. I can do this. I must. Septu Nellis stepped forward.
Hang on a second.
Me.
Actually, no. Sean, do you want to do? I don't think I want to do this. I don't want to Monty Python her. Do you want to do the Septa voice?
Septas deserve it.
Let's hear it. You know.
A sinner comes before you, she declared. She is Cersei of House Lannister, Queen Dowager Mother to His Grace, King Tommen, widow of His Grace King Robert, and she has committed grievous falsehoods and fornications.
So.
Oh, there's another one. Septa Moel moved up on the Queen's right. This sinner has confessed her sins and begged for absolution and forgiveness. His High Holiness has commanded her to demonstrate her repentance by putting aside all pride and artifice and presenting herself as the gods made her before the good people of the city. Septa Scalera finished, oh Lord. So now comes this sinner. No, that's unfair. Hang on. Three Septa voices, that's unfair.
The three crones. No, it's good. It's good.
So now this sinner comes before you with a humble heart, shorn of secrets and concealments, naked before the eyes of gods and men, to walk her walk of atonement.
Cersei had been a year old when her grandfather died. The first thing her father had done on his ascension was to expel his own father's grasping, low-born mistress from Casterly Rock. The silks and velvets Lord Tytos had lavished on her, and the jewelry she had taken for herself, had been stripped from her, and she had been sent forth naked to walk through the streets of Lannisport so the West could see her for what she was. Page Turner.
They're parallel.
Page Turner. Though she had been too young to witness the spectacle herself, Cersei had heard the stories growing up from the mouths of washerwomen and guardsmen who had been there. They spoke of how the woman had wept and begged, of the desperate way she clung to her garments when she was commanded to disrobe, of her futile efforts to cover her breasts and her sex with her hands as she hobbled barefoot and naked through the streets to exile. Vain and proud she was before, she remembered one guard saying. So haughty you'd think she'd forgot she'd come from dirt. Once we got her clothes off her, though, she was just another whore. If Sir Kevan and the High Sparrow thought that it would be the same with her, they were very much mistaken. Lord Tywin's blood was in her. I am a lioness. I will not cringe for them. The queen shrugged off her robe. She bared herself in one smooth, unhurried motion, as if she were back in her own chambers disrobing for her bath while no one but her bedmaids looking on. When the cold touched her skin, she shivered violently. It took all her strength of will not to try and hide herself with her hands, as her grandfather's whore had done. Her fingers tightened into fists, her nails digging into her palms. They were looking at her, all the hungry eyes, but what were they seeing? I am beautiful, she reminded herself. How many times had Jaime told her that? Even Robert had given her that much when he came to her bed in his cups to pay her drunken homage with his cock. They looked at Ned Stark the same way, though.
Somebody's feeling horny. I'm sorry, I had to say it.
She had to move. Naked, shorn, barefoot, Cersei made a slow descent down the broad marble steps. Goose prickles rose on her arms and legs. She held her chin high, as a queen should, and her escort fanned out ahead of her. The poor fellows shoved men aside to open a way through the crowd, whilst the swords fell in on either side of her. Septa Unella, Septa Scalera, and Septa Moel followed. Behind them came the novice girls in white.
So if we could maybe not read the W word every time in an effort to get this not demonetized. I should have said that earlier. Yeah. But people are yelling obscenities. We understand that part.
Boo!
Boo!
Someone cried. A woman's voice. Women were always the cruelest where other women were concerned.
Basically, if you've seen, I'm sorry, the Princess Bride, boo, boo. It's the old woman booing Buttercup. That's what Cersei is facing. Go ahead.
Old women. It is just your thing. Okay.
The queen of rubbish, the queen of filth, the queen of slime.
Cersei ignored her. There will be more and worse. These creatures have no sweeter joy in life than jeering at their betters. She could not silence them, so she must pretend she did not hear them. She would not see them either. She would keep her eyes on Aegon's high hill across the city, on the towers of the Red Keep shimmering in the light. That was where she would find her salvation. If her uncle had kept his part of the bargain, he wanted this, him and the High Sparrow, and the little Rose as well. I do not doubt. I have sinned and must atone, must parade my shame before the eyes of every beggar in the city. They think that this will break my pride, that it will make an end to me, but they are wrong. Septa Unella and Septa Moel kept pace with her, with Septa Scalera scurrying behind her, ringing a bell. Shame. Or do you want to say that, or does someone?
Shame, the old hag called. Shame upon the sinner. Shame, shame.
Somewhere off to the right, another voice sang counterpart to hers. Some baker's boy shouting,
"Meat pies, 3 pence, hot meat pies here."
The marble underfoot was cold and slick, and Cersei had to step carefully for fear of slipping. Their path took them past the statue of Baelor the Blessed, standing tall and serene upon the plinth, his face a study in benevolence. To look at him, you would never guess what a fool he'd been. The Targaryen dynasty had produced kings, both bad and good, but none as beloved as Baelor, that pious, gentle Septon king who loved the small folk and the gods in equal parts, yet imprisoned his own sisters. It was a wonder that his statue did not crumble at the sight of her bare.
Hold on. That's pretty funny, Cersei. Nice one. Go ahead.
Tyrion used to say that King Baelor was terrified of his own car. I don't know if I can say that. Once she recalled, he had expelled in the boo women from King's Landing. He prayed for them as they were driven from the city gates, the history said, but would not look at them.
Baelor is. It's funny how George skewers different types of morality and vanity. Like the Lannisters are amoral and vain. And Baelor is vain in his own way, and he's super moralistic, but in the end, like, he's kind of a D-bag. He's kind of an a-hole. Like, anyway, it's totally different kind. What's that, Sean?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, he sends them off with the super condescending, "I'll pray for you."
Oh, yeah.
I'll pray for you, but I won't look at you.
Bless your heart.
Well, compare that to like Jesus washing the feet of sex workers and thieves and beggars and like the dregs of society, right? Like this Baelor's not quite that down.
Actual humility versus, whatever is going on. He's afraid of his own rooster.
Baelor does very showy stuff. Also, if we're going to go back to the Bible, Jesus talks about praying in secret and not doing so for a display, for, you know what I mean, like the Pharisees and stuff. So Baelor's the opposite of that. He's very much displaying his faith. This is very off topic, but Baelor's interesting. So what the heck?
Yeah.
In any case, how much do you want to? It's up to. I will leave it up to you how far you want to read. But
I can keep going.
I mean, it's a great scene. There's no, it's no matter what we want to read.
Well,
But
it's yeah, well, it's kind of like more of the same.
yeah, let me
Um,
look. Let's look for there's like the deep thoughts about the family here. This is
yes.
mostly she gets stuff's throwing at her. She's slipping. Shame,
Ooh.
shame. The bell clangs. The meat looks like rat. She's like having little micro thoughts here to sort of disassociate.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. And it's just getting worse and more sort of gross. The things that are being thrown in the puddles, rotten fruit, dead cat. Cersei
Yeah.
walks on. Queen, the C word, chestnuts, hot roast chestnuts. So the sort of the very common normal things. And it's those lines about selling, it's almost like this is a carnival event. Well, it is. It is. Like
Yeah.
Cersei is the main feature at a kind of dumb show. And so here are the vendors, and George just wants to remind us like that this is an event, that the people are just like, oh, the former queen's getting marched through the street today. Oh, I guess I'm not doing anything. Let's go get some hot dogs and a pickle and, you know,
Well,
Yeah.
take it all in.
not to
Yeah.
I know we were going to try to stay away from symbolism, but chestnut is always kind of a hallmark, just because the stabbing through the chest of Azor Ahai, Nissa Nissa, but it's secretly a procreative act with a seed or a nut. So and of course you have between the teats, not getting demonetized, is where Penny Tree is, and Sir Arlen and his horse Chestnut. And so like there, every time you see it, there's an implication of the Lightbringer Azor Ahai Nissa Nissa relationship.
Oh, well, the thing is, she's also marching down the street that goes between the two hills,
Up
which,
to Aegon's High Hill, yeah.
yeah. So, and it's called the Street of the Sisters. It's straight as an arrow
Yeah,
because it's talking about the arrow,
here
yeah.
they're between two hills named after women again, and so of
And
course
Ygritte's death, similarly, arrow in her chest.
yeah.
So, yeah, it's a whole thing. But yeah, we
But
don't have time for that, Sean. We do not. So,
But in while all that's happening, Cersei's saying things like, "I'm blind and deaf, and they are worms," and I feel like that's very important. 'Cause I don't think that's just a Cersei line. I think that's like a Lannister genetic trait, is to be able to go away in your head and do the hard thing, and do it in a way that is pretentious.
Yeah, we
so
see Tommen doing it.
Well, Jaime tells Tommen to do it, and Jaime talks about doing it himself when he's dealing with
Mhm.
Ares. So this is a disassociation, and this is a coping skill to deal with extreme violence or extreme shame or things like that. And it's dangerous because when you don't actually feel things, it leads to like sort of breaks, rifts in your psychology and stuff. So,
But it's different. Like it's one thing to say, I can do this, I can do this. It's another thing to say, I can do this because they're worms and I'm better than them
they
and they're
think this will
nothing.
humiliate me, but I will show them. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's one way to think of like just empowering yourself, but Lannister empowerment always comes from showing up other people, or this idea that they're better is what gives them the confidence. Is that making sense?
Yeah, they're these kingly sun god figures that
Yeah.
they thrive off the fact that they've created this barrier between themselves and the normal people, and they have to kind of build up that mythology so that the small folk believe that and keep them
Mhm.
on this pedestal. And here we've had those barriers erased.
Yeah. You can empower yourself without belittling other people, and they don't do that.
Yeah, well, and
Yeah,
he's
but you can also empower yourself by belittling other people, and that's what
what they
they like
do.
to do.
Yeah.
I don't think
Okay.
any of them have been to therapy.
Yeah, more of the same. Wait, sorry, Sean.
You could fight battles, or just hear me out. We could do war crimes. So let's see here. She thinks it should be Jaime here beside me. And so basically what's happening is her composure is starting to break at the end. And that's really the journey here. She's like, I must keep walking. She's being helped now. She's limping, leaving a trail of bloody footprints. She says, you do not need to drag me, sir. So she's like she's wrenching free of the help, right? So she wants to do it herself still. Let's see. And then people are complimenting her appearance. Oh wait, no, they're not complimenting. They are insulting her appearance and talking about her body and stuff. And that can't be the queen. She's as saggy as my mom. This is my penance, Cersei told herself. I've sinned most grievously. This is my atonement. It will be over soon. It will be behind me. Then I can forget. So she's sort of allowing herself to admit that she's messed up only in this moment when it's like it's about to be over. But it's kind of like she allows that little bit of truth in, and then it starts to kind of break her down. The queen began to see familiar faces. Go ahead, read right there.
The queen began to see familiar faces. A bald man with bushy side whiskers frowned down from a window with her father's frown, and for an instant looked so much like Lord Tywin that she stumbled. A young girl sat beneath a fountain, drenched in spray, and stared at her with Malara Heatherspoon's accusing eyes.
Okay, now this is pretty much the line that confirms that Cersei did push Malara down a well. Okay?
Yes.
So just note that. That's it right there. Go ahead.
She saw Ned Stark, and beside him little Sansa with her auburn hair and a shaggy gray dog that might have been her wolf. Every child squirming through the crowd became her brother Tyrion, jeering at her as he had jeered when Joffrey died. And there was Joff as well, her son, her firstborn, her beautiful bright boy with his golden curls and his sweet smile. He had such lovely lips. That was when she fell the second time. She was shaking like a leaf when they pulled her to her feet. Please, she said, Mother, have mercy. I confessed.
You did, said Septimoel. This is your atonement. It is not much farther, said Septa Unella. See, she pointed up. Up the hill, that's all.
Up the hill, that's all. It was true. They were at the foot of Aegon's high hill, the castle above them. Boo! Boo!
Brother! That's the best so we won't read it, but you can see it on the screen. That is it. But let's hold on. Let's go back here. This is interesting, this list of ghosts that's haunting her, because this is her conscience. This is her repressed conscience trying to surface. So all of these things are things she remembers. She knows she pushed that girl down a well. She still thinks about it, even though she tries not to. Sansa and the killing of Lady is mentioned here. That's interesting because not only all the abuse that Cersei enabled Joffrey to do and the Kingsguard to do of Sansa, like, goes all the way back to Lady and Cersei's bloodlust for the wolf in that scene. She feels bad about that on some repressed level. That is very interesting to me.
And you know what's interesting is also who's missing. Robert's not on there, which shows that like she doesn't feel bad about that. She was like, "Yeah, it's fine."
Yeah, and I that's understandable. So
also just not super accurate as to how like it's kind of like she doesn't really know how to feel guilty because she's such a narcissist, but these are the things she brings up because she feels like she's supposed to.
That's true. You're right. You're so right. She's like, "Oh yeah, I did a bad thing. This is what I'm supposed to do, but it's almost over." It's like you don't have any idea what actual accountability and like feeling sorry for your like that you did something and wanting to create recompense for it. Like she's just so far away from understanding that process.
And also like, can you say that again?
Fisher Price, my first guilt.
My first guilt. But like starter set. No, but dang it, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, just that whenever bad things are happening to us as humans, we always ask, why is this happening to me? And sometimes if we're lucky, our brain will answer that. And I think that's what's happening with Cersei. Why is she looking at me? Why are they yelling this stuff? And she's like, and her brain's like, because Sansa, Ned, Tyrion, Malaria Heatherspoon. So her brain is answering it.
Ned Stark's looking at her like, "Oh, you taking care of my daughter? Thanks." Wow. Good. Okay, great observations. So, let's see. Cersei began to climb. Yeah, why don't you go right there, if anything?
If anything, the jeers and shouts were cruder here. Her walk had not taken her through Flea Bottom, so its denizens had packed onto the lower slopes of Aegon's high hill to see the show. The faces leering out at her from behind the shields and spears of the poor fellows seemed twisted, monstrous, hideous. Pigs and naked children were everywhere underfoot, crippled beggars and cut purses swarming like roaches through the press. She saw men whose teeth had been filed into points, hags with goiters as big as their heads, a bad woman with a huge striped snake draped about her breasts and shoulders.
Hold on,
A man,
that rocks. Like, what is that? That's something out of Conan the Barbarian, Sean,
Oh,
isn't
George is
it?
just a huge fan of Britney Spears.
Britney Spears. Yeah, I was about to say that.
She's
A
coming
man
through
who-
like a wrecking ball. Real quick, the men whose teeth that had been filed would be the former children of the fighting pits in Flea Bottom
Yes.
that are now just walking
Grown up.
around.
And I'm sorry, I kind of went aside there being sassy, but yeah, it is a Conan thing with Tulsa Doom, who's kind of like a snake god type figure.
Or like Barbarella or something. I mean, this is just real quick. It's just like, yeah, there's, this and that. And also, yeah.
So is this what happens? Are these the people from Flea Bottom? Because this is a different crowd.
This is the people from Flea Bottom who've come over because it says, yeah, her walk didn't take her through there. So they've come here. Yeah.
Oh,
So
also,
these are the circus people.
shout
Amanda's
out,
cheeks and brow were covered with sores and wept great pus. What's that, Sean?
sorry, shout out to a guy I know. Eve did nothing wrong.
Eve?
Yeah, no, that's you. You had the book. Eve did nothing wrong. Yeah, Eve with the snake on her shoulders here. This is
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah. She, even she has come out. She is selling my book there on the side. Be like, can I get $2 for this? I am still working on that book, by the way, those of you who are curious. They grinned and licked their lips and hooted at her. Let's see where this goes. Scene proposals. Words are wind, she thought. Words cannot hurt me. I am beautiful, the most beautiful woman in all Westeros. Jaime says so. Jaime would never lie to me. Even Robert. Robert never loved me, but he saw I was beautiful. He wanted me. And now she's starting to get a little more manic and psycho here, just like running, so like desperately trying to find a thought. Go ahead.
Yeah.
She did not feel beautiful.
She's starting to believe what the crowd is saying. Like that guy that said, hey, my wife's mounds look better than your mounds. And like, I'm sure Cersei's been around yes women and yes men her whole life. She's probably really thinks that she's the most beautiful woman in the world. And
Lots of hills and lovely
I don't
lady
think-
lumps and humps going on here.
yeah, I think the truth is that a lot of women look as good or better than Cersei. And now she's starting to see that the thing that she was clinging to might not be hers. She did not feel beautiful though. She felt old, used, filthy, ugly. There were stretch marks on her belly from the children she had borne, and her breasts were not as firm as they had been when she was younger. Without a gown to hold them up, they sagged against her chest. I should not have done this. I was their queen. But now they've seen. I should never have let them see. Gowned and crowned, she was a queen. Naked, bloody, limping, she was only a woman. Not so very different from their wives. More like their mothers than their pretty little maiden daughters. What have I done? There was something in her eyes, stinging, blurring her sight. It's like, what is this human emotion?
So when Tyrion is giving the Tysha story to Bronn, he pauses at the point where he's obviously shedding a tear. And it's like the smoke was stinging his eyes. So George uses the inner monologue to show you the denial. It's great
Yeah.
parallel. Go ahead.
always
Lannisters don't cry.
No.
just had something in both my eyes.
It's stinging. She could not cry. She would not cry. The worms must never see her weep. Cersei rubbed her eyes with the heels of her hands. A gust of cold wind made her shiver violently, and suddenly the hag was there, standing in the crowd with her pendulous teats and her warty greenish skin leering with the rest, with malice shining from her crusty yellow eyes.
Queen you shall be, she hissed, until there comes another, younger and more beautiful, to cast you down and take all you hold most dear.
And then there was no stopping the tears. They burned down the queen's cheeks like acid. Cersei gave a sharp cry, covered her nipples with one arm, slid her other hand down to hide her slit, and began to run, shoving her way past the line of poor fellows, crouching as she scrambled crab-legged up the hill. Partway up, she stumbled and fell, rose, then fell again 10 yards further on. The next thing she knew, she was crawling, scrambling uphill on all fours like a dog, as the good folks of King's Landing made way for her, laughing and jeering and applauding her. Then, all at once, the crowd parted and seemed to dissolve, and there were the castle gates before her, and a line of spearmen in gilded half-helms and crimson cloaks. Cersei heard the gruff, familiar sound of her uncle growling orders, glimpsed a flash of white to either side of Sir Boris Blount, and Sir Meryn Trant strode toward her in their pale plate and snowy cloaks. "My son!" she cried. "Where's my son? Where's Tommen?"
Not here. No son should have to bear witness to his mother's shame. Sir Kevan's voice was harsh. Cover her up.
Then Jocelyn was bending over her, wrapping her in her soft, clean blanket of green wool to cover her nakedness. A shadow fell across them both, blotting out the sun. I had to pause there.
Nice. Yeah, well, it's the same thing that Gregor does in the Oberyn fight. He repeatedly blocks the sun. It's moon eclipse stuff. We all know this. Blah, blah, blah. We can keep going.
The queen felt cold steel slide beneath her. A pair of great armored arms lifted her off the ground, lifting her up into the air as easily as she had lifted Joffrey when he was still a babe. A giant, thought Cersei. Dizzy as he carried her with great strides toward the gatehouse, she had heard that giants could still be found in the godless wild beyond the wall. That is just a tale. Am I dreaming? No, her savior was real, 8 feet tall, maybe taller, with legs as thick around as trees. He had a chest worthy of a plow horse and shoulders that would disgrace an ox. His armor was plate steel, enameled white and bright as a maiden's hopes, and worn over gilded mail. A great helm hid his face. From its crest streamed 7 silken plumes in the rainbow colors of the faith. A pair of golden 7-pointed stars clasped his billowing cloak at the shoulders. A white cloak. Should I keep going?
Yeah, no, we can stop. This is cool, but yeah, it's not really character work here. So yeah, Qyburn appears. Your Grace, he said, it is so good to have you back. May I have the honor of presenting our newest member of the Kingsguard. This is Sir Robert Strong. Sir Robert, Cersei was... That's pretty funny.
Sir Robert. The one I left out.
Yeah.
The one I didn't care about. The one I didn't mourn.
So you remember your big, strong, abusive husband? Well, I've made him mute. And now he does whatever we say. It's kind of like a little bit of a wish fulfillment thing there.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
Yeah.
It's a nice gift.
So, and of course, yes, the Cleganes may be descended of Dunk, so this may be a weird, not only poetic echo, but actual descendant echo of Dunk being in the Kingsguard as well, which is, it's obviously a messed up one. But your thoughts, Sean?
Well, they've named him after a Strong, which is really interesting, especially because Cersei very directly parallels Rhaenyra in a lot of ways. They even have a kid named Joffrey. They have 3 kids who are all bastards. She cuckolded her husband. Like, there's a lot. And the fact that the father was a Harwin Strong, and then there's a lot going on politically with his father. Was it Lionel Strong? Lionel is a great name for a Lannister. But yeah, him being like kind of a...
Sworn shield, like Harwin.
So,
sorry,
the symbolism, people are begging me the symbol. Look, Cersei is a Fire Moon character. She's a Nissa character, all right? During what happens to the Fire Moon when it explodes, they go different ways. A lot of the Nissa characters we see them get stuck in the ice moon. Because again, if there are two moons and one explodes, pieces of it get stuck in the other one. And so we see this motif of a piece of fire moon, which sometimes is a dragon thing, or sometimes it's a Nissa Nissa thing, gets frozen in an icy place. It happens to Sansa most notably. She literally becomes Elaine Stone after she leaves King's Landing. There's Nissa Nissa, sun darkening stuff with Joffrey's death. She becomes a stone, flies away from King's Landing, and lands in the Vale, which is an ice moon symbol. Okay, so Cersei is doing this several times here. When she is imprisoned on the Sept, in the Sept of Baelor on Visenya's Hill, that's all ice moon stuff. It's a white marble temple. Her hair is cut off. So just like Sansa becomes a stone, Cersei loses her fiery hair and her head looks like an egg or a stone. And then she is imprisoned, just like Sansa is imprisoned in a way in the Vale. She's abducted there. So when Robert Strong picks her up, it's more the same symbolism. Robert Strong is a big icy Kingsguard warrior, and he is picking her up and swallowing her up. So that's the same symbolism. She is again being wrapped in the ice moon. But this has nothing to do with the Lannisters. This is why I told you not to get me started on the symbolism.
And Sansa dyed her hair chestnut. I'm just saying.
Yes.
Chestnut.
Yes, she does.
No, but Sean, I was saying that
She has to hide her fire, just like Cersei's hair is cut and Dany's hair is burned off. There's so much.
no
Sorry.
hair for the women. Bald ladies, where you at? No, Sean, I was saying that Rhaenyra has a strong as a sworn shield, and now Cersei has a strong as a sworn shield.
That's probably a better parallel.
That's true. Okay, nicely done. Nicely done. See, parallels aren't just for space rocks.
And if Cersei is Rhaenyra's descendant, then this is even more fitting.
I'm sorry, what?
If Cersei's Rhaenyra's descendant,
Oh, please don't.
that'll be fitting. Why? This is a Lannister stream, okay? I'm just talking about the possibilities.
Okay. Let me see.
Wait, can you say that again?
So I'm Euron over here, I believe. I do have an eye patch. I forgot it. I'm super upset about that, but
So this is going to be in. Oh gosh, is this Clash or Storm when Cersei sets Jaime free? I'm going to say Clash.
Catelyn.
Okay, so obviously, Sean, you're going to do Jaime.
okay.
And Nettles, you're going to do Cat. And I'm going to take a break. And you guys are going to carry this program. This is what I was planning on. I've been working many years to get to this point where I could recruit people to come on my show, carry my program for me. But now, seriously though, part of having you both on, obviously you both are very good voice actors, much better than me. All I can do is bad old lady voices. You guys are real voice actors, so this is a good scene for you guys to roll in here. And it's pretty much just Jaime and Kat. So yeah, but it's delicious. This is one of the best reveals in the whole story. So yeah, go ahead and with Catelyn shouldered aside the heavy wood door.
Okay. Catelyn shouldered aside the heavy wood door and iron door and stepped into foul darkness. This was the bowels of River Run and smelled the part. Old straw crackled underfoot. The walls were discolored with patches of nitre. Through the stone, she could hear the faint rush of the tumblestone. The lamplight revealed a pail overflowing with faces in one corner, and a huddled shape in another. The flagon of wine stood beside the door, untouched. So much for that ploy. I ought to be thankful that the jailer, right? I ought to be thankful that the jailer did not drink it himself, I suppose.
Jaime
That's
raised. Oh, sorry. You paused. I thought you were handing it off. Go ahead.
That's you, Sean.
That is you, Sean.
Jaime raised his hands to cover his face, the chains around his wrists clanking. Lady Stark, he said in a voice hoarse with disuse. I fear I am in no condition to receive you.
Look at me, sir.
I will just say, if you guys want to skip some of the he said dialogue, if it's not really adding anything, feel free to just fly by that and then just grab the important inner monologue. Use your best judgment.
Okay.
The light hurts my eyes. A moment, if you would.
You go. You go, Sean.
Sorry, we were having a polite off. Jaime Lannister had been allowed no razor since the night he was taken in the Whispering Wood, and a shaggy beard covered his face, once so like the Queen's. Glinting gold in the lamplight, the whiskers made him look like some great yellow beast, magnificent even in chains. His unwashed hair fell to his shoulders in ropes and tangles. The clothes were rotting on his body. His face was pale and wasted, and even so, the power and the beauty of the man were still apparent.
I see you had no taste for the wine I sent you.
Such sudden generosity seemed somewhat suspect.
I can have your head off any time I want. Why would I need to poison you?
Death by poison can seem natural. Harder to claim that my head simply fell off. He squinted up from the floor, his cat-green eyes slowly becoming accustomed to the light. I'd invite you to sit, but your brother has neglected to provide me a chair.
I can stand well enough.
Can you? You look terrible, I must say. Though perhaps it's just the light in here. He was fettered at wrist and ankle, each cuff chained to the others, so he could neither stand nor lie comfortably. The ankle chains were bolted to the wall. Are my bracelets heavy enough for you? Or did you come to add a few more? I'll rattle them prettily if you like.
You brought this on yourself. We granted you the comfort of a tower cell befitting your birth and station. You repaid us by trying to escape.
A cell is a cell. Some under Casterly Rock make this one seem a sunlit garden. One day, perhaps I'll show them to you.
If he is cowed, he hides it well, Catelyn thought. A man chained hand and foot should keep a more courteous tongue in his mouth, sir. I did not come here to be threatened.
No? Then surely it was to have your pleasure of me. It's said that widows grow weary of their empty beds. We of the King's Guard vow never to wed, but I suppose I could still service you if that's what you need. Pour us some of that wine and slip out of that gown, and we'll see if I'm up to it.
Catelyn stared down at him in revulsion. Was there ever a man as beautiful or as vile as this one? If you said that in my son's hearing, he would kill you for it.
Only so long as I was wearing these. Jaime Lannister rattled his chains at her. We both know the boy is afraid to face me in single combat.
My son may be young, but if you take him for a fool, you are sadly mistaken. And it seems to me that you were not so quick to make challenges when you had an army at your back.
Do the old kings of winter hide behind their mothers' skirts as well?
I grow weary of this, sir. There are things I must know.
Why should I tell you anything?
To save your life.
You think I fear death? That seemed to amuse him.
You should. Your crimes will have earned you a place of torment in the deepest of the seven hells, if the gods are just.
What gods are those, Lady Catelyn? The trees your husband prayed to? How well did they serve him when my sister took his head off? If there are gods, why is the world so full of pain and injustice?
Because of men like you.
There are no men like me. There's only me.
There's nothing here but arrogance and pride and the empty courage of a madman. I'm wasting my breath with this one. If there was ever a spark of honor in him, it is long dead. If you will not speak with me, so be it. Drink the wine or piss in it, sir. It makes no matter to me. Her hand was at the door pull, and when he said,
Lady Stark.
She turned, waited.
Things go to rust in this damp, even a man's courtesies. Stay, and you shall have your answers. For a price.
He has no shame. Captives do not set prices.
Oh, you'll find mine modest enough. Your turnkey tells me nothing but vile lies, and he can't even keep them straight. One day he says Cersei has been flayed, and the next it's my father. Answer my questions, and I'll answer yours.
Okay, so let me just cut in real quick and interrupt this beautiful moment that we're having here. So this is the beginning of, we see some of Jaime's nihilism, cynicism, and brokenness here, when he's just sort of saying, if there are gods, why is the world so full of pain and injustice? That's a very realistic jumping off point for that kind of a worldview. This is a thought that probably everyone's played with at some point who was raised with any sort of religious belief. And it's like, well, if God's real, then why did I break my arm? Why did my cat die? Why did grandma die? Why did anything happen? So as he flashes through the list of horrors happening in the world. Yeah, so this is like one response you can have. It's like, well, if there's supposed to be a God, isn't he supposed to like make sure good things happen to good people or something like that? And so this is a very interesting exploration of worldview that's happening here. Obviously, it goes a lot further with the reasons why Jaime doesn't sort of believe in anything. But it's interesting that Kat is looking at him and she's like, oh, if there was ever a spark of honor in him, it's long dead. It's not honor that he's missing, it's belief. Like, honor comes from believing in stuff. Like the very idea that honor is worth something. The only thing that honor means to Jaime, he's got two examples. One, his dad sort of protecting the reputation of the Lannisters, which isn't honor. It's more of a gangster type of, I'm the biggest dude in the prison, don't mess with me. And then the knightly honor, the knightly vows, which have been shown to be so hollow and confusing, especially for the Kingsguard. So Catelyn is glimpsing something that she doesn't even understand, as far as like, why is this guy saying this just super aggro, edgelordy stuff? She can't even comprehend the level of brokenness of his sort of worldview here. I just wanted to put my 2 cents on that, but your thoughts.
And none of the Lannisters have gone to therapy, and you do see him break there when she's about to leave.
Right, because he's like, well, this is about to get really boring again. At least it's your kind of... Clearly, he enjoys the riposte, you know?
Yeah. I was kind of like how when Tyrion's in jail, like he wants to see people, and just the idea of like the prisoners. I had a friend who went to prison, and he would write me so many letters because it's boring in prison. Like if Jaime goes ahead and just answers Catelyn's answers her questions, then it's over, and he doesn't have like human interaction for a long time. So he's going to draw this out. He's going to play with her because he's a Lannister and he thinks he's better than her. That's a Lannister trait, right? The other thing, David, you said, starting with like the religion, I think another Lannister trait is that they're all atheists, right?
They're very kind of, they're somewhere in that range of like Machiavellianism, utilitarianism. They only care about the results. They're not really concerned with concepts like honor or even love. Like the way that love is defined by all of these people is pretty messed up. Like Cersei is like, Tyrion wants to be loved. That's why he's weak and pathetic. So like, yeah, we I guess we can explore that too as it keeps coming up. But that's a good observation. Yeah.
It's weird. Tyrion and Tywin are the closest to actually understanding what actual love is. And it doesn't go well for either of them.
There's definitely not any sort of belief in stuff. And Jaime,
Feeling.
and we're you know,
Mushy.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nettles.
No, I was just adding feelings and mushy stuff. Like they don't have belief in that. Like the spiritual and good feeling stuff. It's more pragmatic stuff.
And well, just to get down to the concept of honor depends on a belief in right and wrong. That's the first thing you have to consider honor. If you just kind of feel like, well, everyone does what they want to and there's no judge in heaven evaluating and it's just about what the results are, then you could kind of justify anything as far as the ends justifying the means, or even just rejecting the concept. And that's why I think Jaime really is amoral. I think that's the closest description to his philosophy. It's amoralism. He doesn't believe in right and wrong. It's a worthless concept to him. But so to get to the redemption arc thing, Jaime is not so much on a redemption arc, he is trying to find a sense of belief. Okay. And he starts with like, well, maybe I'll do the right thing as Lord Commander of the Kingsguard when no one expects that. And so he's almost trying it on like, it's like, what if I like believed in doing something right? And he's been inspired by Brienne because Brienne is just oozing belief in doing the right thing. That's all she is a paragon of I do the right thing no matter how much it costs me at all moments. And so this has gradually like dented Jaime's brain a little bit. He's like, what if I tried doing the right thing for its own sake? Maybe that would do something for me as he breaks away from Cersei. So yeah, I wouldn't call that a redemption arc so much as like searching for meaning or purpose. I think that is what Jaime is doing.
Yeah, well, and I mean, his crimes are not redeemable. So it's
Pushing children out of a window. Yeah, you can't have that guy over to dinner later. Like, well, yeah, no, he apologized for that.
He's good. He confessed.
No, he pushed a child out of a window.
Yeah, no, he's about to confess. So that's how you know it's good. It's he redeemed, you know.
So yeah, the chat is enjoying our discussion. Thank you. This is definitely cooking here, and we should get to some Tywin lines, so you could do your Tywin voice. But let us get back to this scene because there's some really great stuff coming here. So answer my questions, and I'll answer yours. Go ahead, take it away.
Truthfully,
It's truth you want? Be careful, my lady. Tyrion says that people often claim to hunger for truth, but seldom like the taste when it's served up.
I am strong enough to hear anything you care to say.
As you will, then. First, if you'd be so kind, the wine. My throat is raw.
Sean, can I get you to speak a little bit louder? You're doing awesome, but you're dropping your voice so much that it's not picking up as much on the mic. So just if you could keep it a little.
I got a little too into character, and he's struggling for volume. But yeah, I'll get.
Or just get a little closer when you do that. Yeah, one of the other. And yeah, there you go.
He say method. Catelyn hung the lamp from the door and moved the cup and flagon closer. Jaime sloshed the wine around his mouth before he swallowed.
Sour and vile, but it will do. He put his back to the wall, drew his knees up to his chest, and stared at her. Your first question, Lady Catelyn.
Not knowing how long the game might continue, Catelyn wasted no time. Are you Joffrey's father?
You would never ask, unless you knew the answer.
I want it from your lips.
He shrugged. Joffrey is mine, as are the rest of Cersei's brood, I suppose.
You admit to being your sister's lover.
I've always loved my sister, and you owe me 2 answers. Do all my kin still live?
Sir Stafford Lannister was slain at Oxcross, I'm told.
Jaime was unmoved. Uncle Dolt, my sister called him. It's Cersei and Tyrion who concern me, as well as my lord father.
They live, all 3, but not long if the gods are good.
Jaime drank some more wine. Ask your next.
Catelyn wondered if he would dare answer her next question with anything but a lie. How did my son Bran come to fall?
I flung him from a window.
The easy way he said it took her voice away for an instant. If I had a knife, I would kill him now, she thought, until she remembered the girls. Her throat constricted as she said, You were a knight, sworn to defend the weak and innocent.
He was weak enough, but perhaps not so innocent. He was spying on us.
Bran would not spy.
Then blame those precious gods of yours, who brought the boy to our window and gave him a glimpse of something he was never meant to see.
Blame the gods, she said, incredulous. Yours was the hand that threw him. You meant for him to die.
His chains clinked softly. I seldom fling children from towers to improve their health. Yes, I meant for him to die.
And when he did not, you knew your danger was worse than ever, so you gave your catspaw a bag of silver to make certain Bran would never wake.
Did I now? Jaime lifted his cup and took a long swallow. I won't deny we talked of it, but you were with the boy day and night. Your maester and Lord Eddard attended him frequently, and there were guards, even those damned direwolves. It would have required cutting my way through half of Winterfell. And why bother when the boy seemed like to die of his own accord?
If you lie to me, the session is at an end. Catelyn held out her hands to show him her fingers and palms. The man who came to slit Bran's throat gave me these scars. You swear you had no part in sending him.
On my honor as a Lannister.
Your honor as a Lannister is worth less than this. She kicked over the waste pail. Foul-smelling brown ooze crept across the floor of the cell, soaking into the straw.
Jaime Lannister backed away from the spill as far as his chains would allow. I may indeed have shit for honor. I won't deny it, but I have never yet hired anyone to do my killing. Believe what you will, Lady Stark, but if I had wanted your Bran dead, I would have slain him myself.
Gods be merciful. He's telling the truth. If you did not send the killer, your sister did.
If so, I'd know. Cersei keeps no secrets from me.
Then it was the imp.
Tyrion is as innocent as your Bran. He wasn't climbing around outside of anyone's windows spying.
Then why did the assassin have his dagger?
What dagger was this?
It was so long, she said, holding her hands apart. Plain, but finely made, with a blade of Valyrian steel and a dragon bone hilt. Your brother won it from Lord Baelish at the tourney on Prince Joffrey's name day.
Can I just interrupt and say how funny it is that they're discussing the friggin' dagger with everything it's been through on the TV show? It's like, you know the one, it's about this long, dragon bone hilt, Valyrian steel, prophecy on it. It's like, yeah, we know the friggin' dagger. Yes, the dagger. George had no idea when he wrote this line, but now it is there's an extra layer of humor here. I wanted to point it out. But
the
yes, carry on.
The Night King killing dagger.
That one, yes. The prophecy would be the key to defeating the Long Night. You don't have to read it. You just have to hit him with the prophecy. That's how it came true.
I like how she's describing it. She's giving the length and everything. And it's like, okay, it's probably the only Valyrian steel dagger in the Seven Kingdoms.
It's funny on so many levels. But yes, the one that on Joffrey's name day, carry on.
That's you, Sean.
Lannister poured, drank, poured, and stared into his wine cup. This wine seems to be improving as I drink it. Imagine that. I seem to remember that dagger now that you describe it. Won it, you say? How?
Wagering on you when you tilted against the Knight of Flowers. Yet when she heard her own words, Catelyn knew she had gotten it wrong. No, it wasn't the other way.
Tyrion always backed me in the lists. But that day, Sir Loras unhorsed me. A mischance. I took the boy too lightly, but no matter. Whatever my brother wagered, he lost. But that dagger did change hands. I recall it now. Robert showed it to me that night at the feast. His Grace loved to salt my wounds, especially when drunk. When was he not drunk?
Tyrion Lannister had said much the same thing as they rode through the mountains of the moon, Catelyn remembered. She had refused to believe him. Peter had sworn otherwise. Peter, who was almost a brother. Peter, who loved her so much he fought a duel for her hand. And yet, if Jaime and Tyrion told the same tale, what did that mean? The brothers had not seen each other since departing Winterfell more than a year ago. Are you trying to deceive me? Somewhere there was a trap here.
I've admitted to shoving your precious urchin out a window. What would it gain me to lie about this knife? He tossed down another cup of wine. Believe what you will, I'm past caring what people say of me. And it's my turn. Have Robert's brothers taken the field?
They have?
Now there's a niggardly response. Give me more than that, or your next answer will be as poor.
Stannis marches against King's Landing. Renly is dead, murdered at Bitterbridge by his brother through some black art. I do not understand it.
A pity. I rather liked Renly, though Stannis is quite another tale. What side have the Tyrells taken?
Renly, at first. Now I could not say.
Your boy must be feeling lonely.
Rob was 16 a few days past, a man grown and a king. He's won every battle he's fought. The last word we had from him, he had taken the crag from the Westerlings.
He hasn't faced my father yet, has he?
When he does, he'll defeat him as he did you.
He took me unawares. A craven's trick.
You dare talk of tricks? Your brother Tyrion sent us cutthroats in envoy's garb under a peace banner.
If it were one of your sons in this cell, wouldn't his brothers do as much for him?
My son has no brothers, she thought. But she would not share her pain with this creature such as this.
Thank you, Sean.
What's a brother's life when honor is at stake, Tyrion is clever enough to realize that your son will never consent to ransom me.
Caitlin could not deny it. Rob's bannermen would sooner see you dead. Rickard Karstark in particular. You slew 2 of his sons in the Whispering Wood.
The 2 with the white sunburst, were they? If truth be told, it was your son that I was trying to slay. The others got in my way. I killed them in fair fight, in the heat of battle. Any other knight would have done the same.
How could you still count yourself a knight when you have forsaken every vow you ever swore?
And here, I just want to point out, Catelyn is now, like, that's not even a strategic question. She's just, like, sort of attacking him in general. It's like changing the subject, not even talking about Whispering Wood anymore. She's just moving the target and going, well, you're not even a knight. You broke all your vows. So she's losing track of, like, what she's really intending to do with this conversation a little bit. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I think it's genuine curiosity, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, these 2 people, like, this is one thing about Martin's writing is, like, characters like this don't get a chance to talk to each other very often. And when they do, there's, like, just years and years of stuff to talk about. Like, they're discussing things that have happened over the last 2 or 3 decades. It's just...
Yeah, when she had this plan, she interrogated, I believe it was his cousin, Cleos Frey, earlier, and she got him a little bit drunk, and the plan was to get him drunk, get him talking, get him off his game, get him a little bit emotional. And then she tried to do it with Jaime, and she ended up the one who's emotional and losing track and off her game.
Yeah, you can see how you can use information to unsettle people. But yeah, carry on.
Jaime reached for the flagon to refill his cup. So many vows. They make you swear and swear. Defend the king, obey the king, keep his secrets, do his bidding, your life for his. But obey your father, love your sister, protect the innocent, defend the weak, respect the gods, obey the laws. It's too much. No matter what you do, you're forsaking one vow for the other. He took a healthy swallow of wine.
Dedicated.
And closed his eyes for an instant, leaning his head back against the patch of nitra on the wall. I was the youngest man ever to wear the white cloak.
And the youngest to betray all it stood for, Kingslayer.
Kingslayer. And such a king he was. To Aerys Targaryen, the second of his name, lord of the 7 kingdoms and protector of the realm, and to the sword that opened his throat. A golden sword, don't you know? Until his blood ran red down the blade. Those are the Lannister colors. Red and gold.
Nice. Good symbolism by Jaime there.
As he laughed, she realized the wine had done its work. Jaime had drained most of the flagon, and he was drunk. Only a man like you would be proud of such an act.
I told you, there are no men like me. Answer me this, Lady Stark. Did your Ned ever tell you the manner of his father's death? Or his brother's?
They strangled Brandon while his father watched, and they killed Lord Rickard as well. An ugly tale. And 16 years old. Why was he asking about it now?
Killed, yes. But how?
Jamie's like the judges here. He's like, could you be more specific?
Can I get a country of origin?
Yeah.
The axe, I suppose.
Jaime took a swallow, wiped his mouth. No doubt Ned wished to spare you, his sweet young bride. If not quite a maiden. Well, you wanted truth. Ask me. We made a bargain. I can deny you nothing. Ask.
Dead is dead. I do not want to know this.
Brandon was different from his brother, wasn't he? He had blood in his veins instead of cold water. More like me,
Brandon was nothing like you.
if you say so. You and he were to wed.
He was on his way to Riverrun when... Strange how telling it still made her throat grow tight after all these years. When he heard about Lyanna and went to King's Landing instead, it was a rash thing to do. She remembered how her own father had raged when the news had been brought to Riverrun. The gallant fool was what he called Brandon.
So again, I want to point out something here. Catelyn is not super good at assessing character. She does not. She thinks Peter loves her and would never do anything to her. And she's like, Jaime, and Brandon, they're nothing alike. They're a lot alike, like clearly.
But there are no like me.
Yeah, right. Yeah, those George loves showing us subtly the hypocrisy of his characters and just letting us sort of see it and point it out. He writes it in there and just lets us see it eventually. But yeah, everybody has their illusions. So
The Gallant Fool is an amazing name for a ship, too.
that's
It probably
true.
is a ship. That sounds like it probably is a ship. All right, that's you, Sean. I think.
Jaime poured the last half cup of wine. He rode... Oh, sorry. He rode into the Red Keep with a few companions, shouting for Prince Rhaegar to come out and die. But Rhaegar wasn't there. Aerys sent his guards to arrest them all for plotting his son's murder. The others were Lord's sons too, it seems to me.
Ethan Glover was Brandon's squire. He was the only one to survive. The others were Jeffrey Mallister, Kyle Royce, and Albert Aaron, John Aaron's nephew and heir. It was queer how she still remembered their names after so many years. Ares accused them of treason and summoned their fathers to court to answer the charge, with the sons as hostages. When they came, he had them murdered without trial, fathers and sons both.
There were trials, of a sort. Lord Rickard demanded trial by combat, and the king granted the request. Stark armored himself as for battle, thinking to duel one of the Kingsguard. Me, perhaps. Instead, they took him to the throne room and suspended him from the rafters, while 2 of Aerys's pyromancers kindled a blaze beneath him. The king told him that fire was the champion of House Targaryen. So all Lord Rickard needed to do to prove himself innocent of treason was, well, not burn.
Dave, you're muted.
I was getting excited because the Starks can represent the others sometimes, being the frozen people that come down from the north. And I was just wondering if this is like a clue that, like on the show, the others actually can't be stopped with fire. They do not melt with regular fire. It takes dragon fire, perhaps, to melt the others. Just random thought here.
Also, it's kind of like a witch's trial. Like all you have to do to prove you're not a witch is drown. Like you're screwed either way.
Right. Yes. Yeah. It definitely is inspired by that for sure. Good observation. Carry on.
Are we at the right place? Did we go forward a page?
Yeah, go back one page. Let's see.
There we
are.
When the fire was blazing, Brandon was brought in. His hands were chained behind his back, and around his neck was a wet leathern cord attached to a device the king had brought from Tyrosh. His legs were left free, though, and his long sword was set down just beyond his reach. The pyromancers roasted Lord Rickard slowly, banking and fanning that fire carefully to get a nice, even heat. His cloak caught first, and then his surcoat, and soon he wore nothing but metal and ashes. Next he would start to cook, Eris promised, unless his son could free him. Brandon tried, but the more he struggled, the tighter the cord constricted around his throat. In the end, he strangled himself. As for Lord Rickard, the steel of his breastplate turned cherry red before the end, and his gold melted off his spurs and dripped down into the fire. I stood at the foot of the Iron Throne in my white armor and white cloak, filling my head with thoughts of Cersei. After Gerald Hightower himself took me aside and said to me, "You swore a vow to guard the king, not to judge him." That was the White Bull, loyal to the end, and a better man than me, all agree.
Okay, so I definitely have to cut in here for the Gerald Hightower pile-on. Who wants to go first?
You take it away.
I'm more cautious about Gerald Hightower. I alleged. Everything that you say, alleged. I'm going to be his attorney, and you go ahead.
Well, I don't want to get that far into it. I'm just saying this is at the crux of why Jaime is disillusioned with the knightly vows, because we're supposed to protect the weak and the innocent and all this stuff that like is about being morally upright. You, as someone who has been turned into a human weapon, it is important from a societal point of view that you, Sir Knight, don't just swing your sword at anyone you feel like. You are supposed to follow rules because we don't want these human weapons just creating anarchy everywhere. It's kind of a thing. So you see that with any military. Like if you're trained with weapons and things, like you are held to certain legal standards that other people aren't. So there's some of that going on. But with Gerald Hightower, he's basically saying not to judge the king. What he's essentially saying is, as Kingsguard, you're supposed to blank out your mind and just obey the king, whatever he does, even if he's burning people alive or abusing and R-wording his wife, which is something John Derry says, hey, you're not supposed to protect, the royal family from the royal family. You just have to stand here and listen. And so it's the same message that, like, being Kingsguard, this is what I'm trying to say, means being loyal to a person instead of to a moral code. And the knightly virtues are presented as a moral code, and becoming a knight, you're supposed to be loyal to a code. But for the Kingsguard, it changes, and they become just tools in the hands of the king. And so that is ultimately, Jaime rejects that idea, and he does judge the king, of course, and he does kill the king, and that was the right thing to do. So this is like just right at the center of Jaime's personal conflict. Either one of you guys.
No, yeah, I definitely agree with that. And that's a great way to put it, is like, pledging your allegiance to a person rather than ideas. And he says here that the White Bull is a better man than me.
Right.
And in this case, the better man is telling you, this is fine. A father and son roasting to death. No, this is fine. So
Like,
if the better man is telling you this is fine, what kind of cognitive dissonance is that?
and so this is like the most bitter thing Jaime has ever said. Is like, oh yes, a better man than me. All agree. You know, this is fits in with him saying to Catelyn, like, gods, what gods? You know, the world is too messed up for that. Your thoughts, Sean?
Well, I think it's making it really hard for me to defend my client here, and we'd like to settle. Yeah, I mean,
You can take the black and go to the wall if you want
Yeah.
to.
Team Black, yeah, anti Hightower, Team Black, but yeah, it's hard to defend that. And then there's definitely a very strange situation with the fact that Gerald Hightower is one of the three supposedly loyal to Rhaegar at the Tower of Joy. And so, is this kind of all just an act to kind of keep the status quo until Rhaegar can flip the script? Is he Aerys's inside man with Rhaegar? Like, what really?
Yeah, well, you have to remember, like I was pointed out in my RLJ video, Hightower was sent to the Tower of Joy by Aerys. The other two were with Rhaegar the whole time. So I do not think Hightower is loyal to Rhaegar. I think he was the one that would have been imprisoning Lyanna and resisting Ned and not allowing Ned in. I think if it had just been Oswell and Arthur, they could have maybe negotiated something. But that's really far afield. So let me table the RLJ. I do have another RLJ video coming. I said video twice. It's a sequel. It's the video. Nissa. It's coming. But
Do you think that in this case, the reason why Jaime feels that he can question the king is because as a Lannister, one of their genetic traits is thinking that they're above the king? Like all of these other Kingsguard from years and years of Kingsguard are just like, I'm a robot, I do what I'm told. And here comes a Lannister Kingsguard that's like, man, I don't like what the king's doing.
I don't. I think it was this disillusionment. I think the only thing that keeps Jaime from killing Aerys is the belief that the stain on his honor is somehow worse than all of those innocent civilians dying. It's the most psychotic interpretation of this medieval mindset possible, and he rejects it. He's like, I'm sorry, at the end of the day, I'm a guy with a sword, and this is a crazy old man who wants to kill thousands of people, and all the rest of it is just trappings. Mm-hmm. I have a sword. I absolutely do get a veto here, and I'm going to use it, even though it's going to cost me my honor. That is preferable. I'm just not going to go any further with this freaking charade, basically, is that's how I interpret it. Cleo, come here, girl.
But he goes on with the charade again when he's Kingsguard to King's Robert. He gets to listen to Robert disrespect his family, I guess.
Yeah, and he hates Robert. He hates Robert,
Yeah.
and he talks about that elsewhere. So, better man than me, all men agree. Take it away.
Aerys.
Oh, and I'm
Catelyn
sorry. I did not mean to disagree with your point, Nettles. He does definitely consider him. I mean, he went and sat on the throne afterwards. So he's making a statement that he considers himself worthy to judge. But I do think that the disillusionment is what is, because the whole idea of honor within the system just doesn't mean anything to him. So switch to clarify. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Aerys, Catelyn could taste bile at the back of her throat. The story was so hideous, she suspected it had to be true. Aerys was mad. The whole realm knew it. But if you would have me believe you slew him to avenge Brandon Stark...
I made no such claim. The Starks were nothing to me. I will say, I think it passing odd that I am loved by one for a kindness I never did, and reviled by so many for my finest act. At Robert's coronation, I was made to kneel at the royal feet beside Grand Maester Pycelle and Varys the eunuch, so that he might forgive us our crimes before he took us into his service. As for your Ned, he should have kissed the hand that slew Aerys, but he preferred to scorn the arse he found sitting on Robert's throne. I think Ned Stark loved Robert better than he ever loved his brother or his father, or even you, my lady. He was never unfaithful to Robert, was he? Jaime gave a drunken laugh. Come, Lady Stark, don't you find this all terribly amusing?
I find nothing about you amusing, King Slayer.
Don't say the F word, Sean, please.
That name again. I don't think I'll love you after all. Littlefinger had you first, didn't he?
And suddenly I'm alone on the stream, although clearly that wasn't either one of their faults, since they both disappeared at the same. And Sean's okay, all right, and
Hi!
Very good.
yeah,
Tywin had to stop this.
somebody's trying to silence our stream. I find nothing about this amusing, Kingslayer or
Confessional.
fans.
And yeah, I couldn't just let it go forward. All right. That name again. I don't think I'll love you after all. Littlefinger had you first, didn't he? I never eat off another man's trencher. Besides, you're not half so lovely as my sister. I've never lain with any woman but Cersei. In my own way, I've been truer than your Ned ever was. Poor old dead Ned. So who has shit for honor now, I ask you? What was the name of that bastard he fathered?
Caitlin took a step backward. Brienne?
No, that wasn't it. Jaime Lannister upended the flagon. A trickle ran down onto his face, bright as blood. Snow, that was the one. Such a white name. Like the pretty cloaks they gave us in the King's Guard when we swear our pretty oaths.
Brienne pushed open the door and stepped inside the cell. You called, my lady. Give me your sword. Caitlin held out her hand.
And that's the chapter. So, okay. So, yeah, Catelyn is now going to try to slay Jaime by her. No, obviously, she's making him swear. This is, what do you think was the turning point in that conversation where that made Catelyn decide that she's going to go ahead and have Jaime do this thing?
When you
What
say
is
do,
it?
do you mean the game?
Like,
The
what is it?
dagger?
She's trying to decide if she can trust him at all. Like, is it worth anything to let him go if she makes him swear these oaths? Like, she's poking him, going, you have no honor, you broke your oaths. She's trying to figure out if there's any scrap of honor. That's why when she leaves the first time, she's like, no, he has no honor, I'm wasting my time. It's pointless to let him go after making him swear, unless she believes that he will stick to it. So somewhere in this confession about Ares and all this stuff, she's like, okay, he's crazy, but he's not
He's honest.
principled, but
I think,
honest, I guess, yeah.
and this is going to be some Catelyn hate. I feel like Catelyn could be easily convinced. I think it's two-part. The first thing is when they're talking about the dagger again, and he tells the same story that Tyrion tells, and she thinks,
Okay.
she's like, well, they didn't have time to talk about this, so it must be true. That's one. And then the second thing, I think, is that Ares conversation. He tells this story, and Sean, you did such a good job. Like, it is such a horrible thing to do, and, Catelyn hearing it for the first time, I think, being a Kingslayer is Jaime's worst act. And now she's just been disillusioned to the fact that, like, okay, he's not so bad because of this, the real story of how Brandon and Rickard died is so vile that, like, it's not so bad that he killed Ares.
That's a great point. I think that definitely changes. I mean, it changes everyone's view of Jaime when they realize. Yeah, and I do have Jaime's confession lined up too, if we want to explore that.
Oh, you recorded that for the court?
Yes, no, I do. I have the evidence. No, the quote, of course. I mean, that it's a good long scene. It's incredible. But let's think about where we want to go next. And if you guys have more thoughts on what we just read, feel free.
Well, this was a good conversation where Lannister wasn't laughed at. So I feel like it's a very the Lannister wins again type of conversation. Jaime and Tyrion are such good conversationalists that like no matter what you kind of thought this was going to be, they can change it and work it in their favor. Tyrion's not the only brain, and at the end of this, Jaime gets freed. All he did was talk crap after crap to Catelyn and still ends up getting freed. And that's such a Lannister thing to do. You're not going to laugh at me. I'm laughing at you. I'm going to talk about, I'm going to sleep with you. I'm going to tell you that your husband is dead. Your husband's a cheater. And I'm laughing at you, and you're still going to free me. Ha ha.
Well, I think something you said there is that Tyrion's not the only brain. All the Lannister children are very smart. They just have
Not
other.
Cersei. Stop.
I think Cersei is smart. I think a lot of her other qualities get in the way. I think even Tyrion admits that she has a certain low cunning, but the problem is she can't get out of her own way. She's way too easily offended, and she very like one-track minds all of her problems.
We did notice when we were doing the Cersei rereads that like one thought is rational and makes sense, and the next thought is like this emotional paranoid thing. So I think Sean has at least some point here in that like it's a constant war between her like emotional wild reactions and a certain low cunning or whatever you want to call it. But
yeah, but she can't get out of her own way. And then Tyrion or Jaime has his own issues with he's very impetuous. He acts before he thinks, not unlike Cersei, and he has he's basically sarcastic and glib from it's his trauma reaction essentially. So he's not able to really plan in the way that Tyrion and Tywin do. And when he starts to get a little bit more cerebral later, when he's, thinking of how to deal with, like Edmure Tully at the Siege of River Run, etc., he's thinking like, what would Tyrion do in this situation? And it's funny because he doesn't have to think what Tyrion would do. He just has to think without letting all of his other bullshit get in the way.
Cersei's stupid.
And you have full license to talk as much trash as you want about Cersei as you want to, Nettles. I just want to say that.
Stupid is as stupid does. So I much as I'm like arguing that there is some intelligence in her.
She certainly does stupid things. Like she does self-destructive things that undermine her own interests. Like again and again. There's no doubt about that. That's also very true.
Again, my client, I've got nothing here. I've got no case.
So this is Cersei on the way to the Vale. Catelyn has arrested not Cersei, Tyrion. Catelyn has arrested Tyrion. They are on the way to the Vale, and they are talking about Littlefinger. And there's a couple things here that I want to read this whole thing immersively, but I just want to grab a couple lines out of here. So first of all, several of the people that are with Catelyn are laughing at him. Tyrion had made a special effort to learn all their names so he might thank them later for their tender treatment of him. A Lannister always paid his debts. So he planned an especially sharp listen for Marillion, him of the wood harp and the sweet tenor voice, who was struggling so manfully to rhyme imp with gimp and limp so he could make a song of his outrage. Tyrion broke his fingers in the middle of the fight, if you remember. Like, he took a minute to, like, step on Marillion's hand and break his fingers. So, like, this revenge thing is real with all the Lannisters. I just wanted to point that out.
And it's another Lannister cutting off hands moment.
Yes.
Hand to the king, cut off their head. That's like cutting off a hand. It's all over the place.
It's all over the place. So by now, let's see. Let's see. My father does not love me overmuch, but I am not at all sure he will bother to bestir himself. It was only half a lie. Lord Tywin Lannister cared not a fig for his deformed son, but he tolerated no slights on the honor of his house. And we made this point earlier, but I just wanted to highlight it with that point. And then the Littlefinger part comes. He's talking about the dagger. Why would Peter lie to me? She says. Why does a bear shit in the woods? He demanded. Because it's his nature. Lying comes as easily as breathing to a man like Littlefinger. You ought to know that of all people. She took a step forward. And what does that mean? Why, every man at court has heard him tell how he took your maidenhead, my lady. That is a lie, Catelyn said. Oh, wicked imp, Marillion said, shocked. And then it says, somebody off, one of the guys offers to cut his tongue out. And Catelyn says, Peter Baelish loved me once. He was only a boy. His passion was a tragedy for all of us, but it was real and pure and nothing to be made mock of. He wanted my hand. That's the truth. You're truly an evil man, Lannister. And she says, you're a fool, Lady Stark. Littlefinger has never loved anyone but Littlefinger. And I promise you, it is not your hand that he boasts of. It's those ripe breasts of yours and that sweet mouth and the heat between your legs. So, of course, Tyrion is telling the truth here. And again, this just highlights my point that, like, Catelyn has not seen the truth of Littlefinger at all.
Yeah.
At all.
And I don't know if this is off topic, but in the last scene we read, Jaime also mentions Peter says that he had you first. Peter had you first. I don't want his leftovers. And Catelyn doesn't deny it. And I think it's because she has her own agenda. She just
She didn't want to be baited by that, yeah.
Not the most introspective.
But here she denies it. So I wonder just why that difference.
Maybe because Tyrion accused here, she's no longer surprised to hear that it's like a rumor or something that's going around. But either way, Tyrion's, that's like 90s R&B lyrics.
And this is also a conversation in front of other people, whereas Catelyn and Jaime were speaking privately, so she doesn't need to, like, answer every accusation. Whereas here, she kind of does if something is said like that.
Yes. So, okay.
And that is, I think that's all. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And they talk about the dagger and stuff. So
Tyrion and Jaime are like twins. Like, these are such great scenes to have side by side. They win. Things end up in their favor at the end of these conversations. They plant seeds to win you over, but they're gonna insult you, man. Dang, Tyrion, why?
Well, they're using they both, Tyrion and Jaime, are using the power of truth here to sort of shake somebody's, using the fact that they know something that Catelyn doesn't, to sort of erode her resolve a little bit, because Catelyn's resolve is based on a deception by Peter Baelish. So this is a good example of how George takes, the Starks, who are the good characters, and begins to, like, say, well, they're not perfect. They have these weaknesses. They have these illusions. Ned is honorable, but isn't that good at politics. And we see that with Jon, too, on the Wall. He's honorable, but he's sending all his friends away and then making moves that lead directly to his assassination. So, yeah, this is interesting here with Catelyn, like, having this delusion about Littlefinger that she's carrying around that both Lannisters are able to sort of use against her. And also the fact that Ned just never told her the true story of Brandon and how messed up that was.
Yeah, so. Ned hasn't told her a lot of stuff.
No. No. Ned's
what
like, don't need to know, don't tell.
I need to go to the bathroom real quick. I got a little too sassy with the wine and that's
Yeah, go for it, Sean. Go for it. We'll try to carry it without you for a couple seconds.
Put it on mute so we don't have to hear your grunts.
I knew you guys would get along. Sean's doing great, isn't he, Nettles?
Yeah, he's cool.
So, yeah, I'm going to feed him some Tywin lines next, because that is something we haven't gotten into. But
yes,
chat.
Big Daddy Lannister. He's the reason why we have this story, because he raised 3 great people.
The texture of his chair, that is a fleece throw blanket over a computer chair. That's what that is.
Same as mine.
Oh, that's funny. I sit on stools because I like to stay.
That's probably smart.
Yeah.
I'm trapped. I can't really move. But no, yeah. Going back to Jaime's, what he said, or his conversation with Catelyn, is that Jaime. I also see that Jaime changes from mocking to more of like a self-reflection, where Catelyn's questions make him ask himself that question: Who am I? What am I? Kingslayer, Kingsguard. Vowing these oaths, and although I think he's successful in this conversation, I still feel like Catelyn or the universe wins a little bit, because Jaime is forced to kind of reckon with that, what he's done and what that means, what the story it tells. about him and his self-identity.
Yeah, there's only a couple moments when we see Jaime sort of deal with that Kingslayer reputation. Obviously, his confession with Brienne. And, yeah, one of the big mysteries of Jaime to understand is why he doesn't advocate for himself better in the wake of the thing. And I think the reason it goes back to his cynicism. He doesn't believe in any of the trappings of this medieval society. So it's like, why is he going to appeal to everyone like, oh no, I did the right thing. And then people will believe I did the right thing and they'll still love me. It's like, he doesn't believe that. He just thinks everything is BS kind of. And so he's like, yeah, whatever. You can think what you want about me. I don't really care. He's just broken, man. Jaime is so broken.
And also, like, going back to that Lannister genetic code of like, I think I'm better than you, so I don't have to answer to you. I don't care if you think I'm a bad guy because I'm a better fighter and I'm richer and I look good. What?
There's a really good...
it's almost like that inherent... Sorry, 1 second, Sean. It's almost like that inherent superior sense of superiority and elitism that you're talking about, Nettles, forms a foundation upon which his nihilism like sort of falls back onto. Like he doesn't believe in anything and he just lands with, well, I'll just do what I want because I'm a Lannister and that's what's given to me as my right. You know, your thoughts, Sean?
Yeah, there's a really good quote, show only, actually, from the scene that we just did, where he says, by what right does the wolf judge the lion?
By what right? Yes. That's in the bathtub confession, which we can definitely read.
Oh, you're right. That was a different scene.
But let's do some Tywin. This is Tywin's first scene here, and I really want to talk about this Red Fork thing. I've been waiting to talk about this because you don't realize how crazy this is, everything that happens with this. But and there's a lot of character work with Tywin. So this will be a lot of Tyrion and Tywin here. Let me read a little bit since y'all read the hell out of that last one. This is some narrative here, and then we're going to get to... I guess I'll do Tyrion so you can do Tywin so you're not talking to yourself, because that would be dumb.
Way too much shower energy.
Way too much what?
Shower energy. Yeah, I argue with myself a lot in the shower. I put on plays. There's a lot going on.
I followed you. I got the joke before Nettles did for the first time ever.
What?
That was fun. Tywin Lannister, Lord of Casterly Rock and Warden of the West, was a man in his middle 50s, yet hard as a man of 20. So this is our first time that we see Tywin on page. Even seated, he was tall, with long legs, broad shoulders, and a flat stomach. His thin arms were corded with muscle. His once thick golden hair had begun to recede, or when his once thick hair had begun to recede, he had commanded his barber to shave his head. Lord Tywin did not believe in half measures. He razored his lip and chin as well, but kept his side whiskers, two great thickets of wiry golden hair that covered most of his cheeks from ear to jaw. It's quite the look. I wonder how George must have just seen somebody like this, and it just stuck in his head. Yeah. It's kind of like the strong man from the circus, almost.
Yeah.
A fool more foolish than most had once jested that even Lord Tywin's shit was flecked with gold. Some said the man was still alive, deep in the bowels of Casterly Rock. Love the double use of bowels and, like, poop there. It's interesting. Sir Kevan Lannister, his father's only surviving brother, was sharing a flagon of ale with Lord Tywin when Tyrion entered the common room. His uncle was portly and balding, with a close-cropped yellow beard that followed the line of his massive jaw. Sir Kevan saw him first. "Tyrion," he said in surprise. "Uncle," Tyrion said, bowing, "and my lord father. What a pleasure to find you here."
Lord Tywin did not stir from his chair, but he did give his dwarf son a long, searching look. "I see that the rumors of your demise were unfounded."
"Sorry to disappoint you, father," Tyrion said. "No need to leap up and embrace me. I wouldn't want you to strain yourself." He crossed the room to their table, acutely conscious of the way his stunted legs made him waddle with every step. Whenever his father's eyes were on him, he became uncomfortably aware of all his deformities and shortcomings, and doesn't that say a lot? "Kind of you to go to war for me," he said, as he climbed into a chair and helped himself to a cup of his father's ale. And this is the first time Tyrion has been reunited with Tywin since his imprisonment in the Vale, which, of course, Tywin did go to war in the Riverlands to protest, kind of.
By my lights, it was you who started this, Lord Tywin replied. Your brother Jaime would never have meekly submitted to capture at the hands of a woman.
That's one way we differ, Jaime and I. He's taller as well. You may have noticed.
His father ignored the sally.
The honor of our house was at stake. I had no choice but to ride. No man sheds Lannister blood with impunity.
Hear me roar, Tyrion said, grinning. The Lannister words. Truth be told, none of my blood was actually shed, although it was a close thing once or twice. Morek and Jick were killed.
I suppose you will be wanting some new men.
Don't trouble yourself, father. I've acquired a few of my own. He tried a swallow of the ale. It was brown and yeasty, so thick you could almost chew it. Very fine, in truth. A pity his father had hanged the innkeep. Casual cruelty of Tywin Lannister. How's your war going? His uncle answered. Well enough for the nonce. Sir Edmure has scattered small troops of men along his borders to stop our raiding, and your lord father and I were able to destroy most of them piecemeal before they could regroup.
Your brother has been covering himself with glory, his father said. He smashed the Lords Vance and Piper at the Golden Tooth and met with massed power of the Tullys under the walls of Riverrun. The Lords of the Trident have been put to rout. Sir Edmure Tully was taken captive with many of his knights and bannermen. Lord Blackwood led a few survivors back to Riverrun, where Jaime has them under siege. The rest fled to their own strongholds.
Your father and I have been marching on each in turn, said Sir Kevan said. With Lord Blackwood gone, Raventree fell at once, and Lady Went yielded Harrenhal for want of men to defend it. Sir Gregor burnt out the Pipers and the Brackens. Leaving you unopposed, Tyrion said. Not wholly, Sir Kevan said. The Lannisters hold Seaguard, and Walder Frey is marshalling his levies at the Twins.
No matter,
Lord Tywin said.
Frey only takes the field when the scent of victory is in the air, and all he smells now is ruin. And Jason Mallister lacks the strength to fight alone. Once Jaime takes Riverrun, they will both be quick enough to bend the knee. Unless the Starks and the Arryns come forth to oppose us, this war is as good as won.
I would not fret overmuch about the Arryns if I were you, Tyrion said. The Starks are another matter. Lord Eddard
is our hostage,
his father said.
He will lead no armies while he rots in a dungeon under the Red Keep.
No, Sir Kevan agreed, but his son has called the banners and sits at Moat Cailin with a strong host around him.
No sword is strong until it's been tempered,
Lord Tywin declared.
The Stark boy is a child. No doubt he likes the sound of war horns well enough, and the sight of his banners fluttering in the wind. But in the end, it comes down to butcher's work. I doubt he has the stomach for it.
As opposed to Tywin Lannister, who does have the stomach for it, am I right? Things had gotten interesting while he'd been away, Tyrion reflected. And what is our fearless monarch doing whilst all this butcher's work is being done? He wondered. How has my lovely and persuasive sister gotten Robert to agree to the imprisonment of his dear friend Ned?
Robert Baratheon is dead,
his father told him.
Your nephew reigns in King's Landing.
That did take Tyrion aback. My sister, you mean? He took another gulp of ale. The realm would be a much different place with Cersei ruling in place of her husband.
If you have a mind to make yourself of use, I will give you a command,
his father said.
Mark Piper and Carol Vance are loose in our rear, raiding our lands across the Red Fork.
Tisk, tisk, tisk. The gall of them, fighting back. Ordinarily, I'd be glad to punish such rudeness, father, but the truth is, I have pressing business elsewhere.
Do you?
Lord Tywin did not seem awed.
We also have a pair of Ned Stark's afterthoughts making a nuisance of themselves by harassing my foraging parties. Beric Dondarrion, some young lordling with delusions of valor. He has that fat jape of a priest with him, the one who likes to set his sword on fire. Do you think you might be able to deal with them as you scamper off, without making too much of a bosh of it?
Tyrion wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and smiled. Father, it warms my heart to think you might entrust me with what? 20 men? 50? Are you sure you can spare so many? Well, no matter. If I should come across Thoros and Lord Beric, I shall spank them both. He climbed down from his chair and waddled to the sideboard, where a wheel of veined white cheese sat surrounded by fruit. First, though, I have some promises of my own to keep, he said as he sliced off a wedge. I shall require 3,000 helms and many other things for the army that we know. The door behind him opened with a crash, so violently that Tyrion almost dropped his cheese. Sir Kevan leapt up, swearing, as the captain of the guard went flying across the room to smash against the hearth. As he tumbled down into the cold ashes, his lion helm askew, Shagga snapped the man's sword in two over a knee, thick as a tree trunk, threw down the pieces, and lumbered into the common room. So that's Shagga and the guard to the tent. He was preceded by his stench, riper than the cheese and overpowering in the closed space.
Little red cape, he snarled. When next you bear steel on Shagga, son of Dolph, I will chop off your manhood and roast it in a fire.
What, no goats? Tyrion said, taking a bite of cheese. The other clansmen followed Shagga into the common room, Bronn with them. The sellsword gave Tyrion a rueful shrug.
Who might you be?
Lord Tywin asked, cool as snow.
They followed me home, father, Tyrion explained. May I keep them? They don't eat much. No one was smiling.
By what rights do your savages intrude on our councils?
Demanded Sir Kevan.
Savages, Lowlander?
Khan might have been handsome if you washed him.
We are free men, and free men by rights sit on all war councils.
That's you, Nettles.
Where am I? They followed me home.
Which one is the Lion Lord? You're Chella.
Oh.
The ear collector.
Savage.
Which one is the Lion Lord? Shall I ask?
Give me a timid voice, Sean.
They are both old men,
announced Timett, son of Timett, who had yet to see his 20th year.
Sir Kevan's hand went to his sword hilt, but his brother placed 2 fingers on his wrist and held him fast. Lord Tywin seemed unperturbed.
Tyrion, have you forgotten your courtesies? Kindly acquaint us with our honored guests.
Tyrion licked his fingers. With pleasure, he said. The fair maid is Chella, daughter of Chake of the Black Ears.
I'm no maid, Chella protested. My sons have taken 50 years among them.
May they take 50 more. Tyrion waddled away from her. This is Khan, son of Korat. Shagga, son of Dolph, is the one who looks like Casterly Rock with hair. They are stone crows. And then, let's see, blah, 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 blah. This is a fun scene, but let me keep going and see. I think there's something I'm trying to get to here. Lord Tywin rose. Go ahead, Sean.
Sorry, I lost myself there.
Well, to Bronn and the clansmen, he said, May I present my lord father, Tywin, son of Tytos of House Lannister, lord of Casterly Rock, warden of the West, shield of Lannisport, and once and future hand of the king.
Lord Tywin rose, dignified and correct.
Even in the West, we know the prowess of the warrior clans of the Mountains of the Moon. What brings you down from your strongholds, my lords?
Horses,
said Shagga.
Oh, that's me.
A promise of silken steel,
said Timett, son of Timett.
Tyrion was about to tell his lord father how he proposed to reduce the Vale of Arryn to a smoking wasteland, but he was never given the chance. Oh, this is it, right? The door banged open once again. The messenger gave Tyrion's clansman a quick, queer look as he dropped to one knee before Lord Tywin. My lord, he said, Sir Adam bid me tell you that the Stark host is moving down the causeway. Lord Tywin Lannister did not smile. Lord Tywin never smiled, but Tyrion had learned to read his father's pleasure all the same, and it was there on his face.
So, the wolfling is leaving his den to play among the lions, he said in a voice of quiet satisfaction. Splendid. Return to Sir Adam and tell him to fall back. He is not to engage the Northerners until we arrive, but I want him to harass their flanks and draw them farther south.
It'll be as you commanded. The rider took his leave. We are well situated here, said Sir Kevan pointed out, close to the ford and ringed by pits and spikes. If they are coming south, I say let them come and break themselves against us.
The boy may hang back or lose his courage when he sees our numbers. The sooner the Starks are broken, the sooner I shall be free to deal with Stannis Baratheon. Tell the drummers to beat assembly and send word to Jaime that I am marching against Robb Stark.
Let's see here. And then there is something else. I think that's about it. Oh, well, right here. Let's see. The Mountain Clans demand that Tyrion rides with them. And so Tywin accedes to this. But this is what leads to this Battle of the Red Fork, where Tywin essentially tries to get Tyrion killed. And then acts very unapologetic afterward.
He's doing mental fist pumping in his, while this is going on. Yes, they're going to get rid of him for me.
Because, he's never been able to make himself throw baby Tyrion down a well, even though he wanted to.
Why?
But if Tyrion were to die in battle, that would be an honorable death, and it would sort of rid Tywin of having to deal with Tyrion, but also in a way that didn't bring dishonor to his house. That's what he's hoping for, I think.
Yeah. I think this was a fine selection, Dave, because it juxtapositions, when Lannisters talk to anyone else, they're talking to lessers. There's mocking in there. Although they don't like to be laughed at, they laugh at other people when they're talking to them. But this was a conversation between three powerful Lannisters, and it's so funny how there's no humor in this entire... Oh, Tyrion tries.
Nobody else laughs at all. Yeah.
Even if it's funny, don't laugh. Tywin shuts it down, makes him feel like this is not the time and place for that. And I think it's interesting to see how Lannisters talk when they're talking to their equals, or the only people who they consider their equals, and it's all business. It's like if you have any super rich old money friends, their houses are always so boring. They're sitting at dinner and it's like, oh, the stock market, and it's like, hey, son, there's no love between them, and every conversation has to be about business. There's no warmth.
You're right. That's a good thing to put your finger on. It's kind of subtle, but it's the vibe of the dialogue and the sort of sensibilities that they share. Yeah, absolutely. And there's more of it. That was only the first part of it. There's some more of this kind of conversation in the next chapter when they talk about going to war. Let me think about what we want to go to next, though. Let me see. There are so many good quotes.
How do you become a Lannister equal? Apparently, you just barge into their tent with an axe, and you're scary, and all of a sudden, they'll talk on your level.
Well, one thing we did skip over is Tywin's the finishing up of his handling of them. He basically challenges their pride a little bit and gets them to sort of volunteer to fight. And so he essentially has co-opted them, and then he's going to put them frontline infantry and sort of just send them into the heart of the war. So,
yeah, Sean, I guess I kind of disagree because the clansmen are not their equals, just useful. Useful.
I don't think that the Lannisters think of them as equals, to be clear. Tywin treated them very generously while he talks down to his actual lords. He's like super, especially Swift. Like they're all kind of morons. But like,
because he realizes that they will be subject to flattery because they don't know the ways of the lords, and they're taking things at face value, and so he kind of downshifts into a different kind of manipulation with them, I would say.
definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, he kind of assesses, and he's like, "Oh, I know, I'll handle this." So pretty cool, yeah. He's like, "No, Kevan, no, we don't pull your sword out, bro. That's not the right move." Yeah. So let's see here. So let's do this other Red Fork quote. This is the end of it. There is more, but I'm gonna go for the end of the battle when he confronts Tywin, because that's the most important part of it, and we just can't do it all. We'd read the whole series. There's a lot of Lannister goodness in this series. Let's see here. So this is the same Tyrion and Tywin here. So he left the living to look after the dead, sent Bronn to take charge of his captive knight, and went alone in search of his father. Lord Tywin was seated by the river. And I also want to point out that during the battle, when Tyrion and the mountain clans were sent, again, in the vanguard, in the middle of the fight, a rain of arrows fell down and hit his own men and the opponents. And Tyrion's like, oh, he didn't know where those had came from. Well, I could tell you where those came from. They came from Tywin. So not only did he send the mountain clans and his son into the most dangerous part of the battle, then he did the thing where it's like, yeah, just shoot arrows in there. They'll get some of ours, but they'll kill some of theirs too. So this has just happened, and that's where we are. So Lord Tywin was seated by the river, sipping wine from a jeweled cup as his squire undid the fastenings on his breastplate. A fine victory, Sir Kevan said when he saw Tyrion. Your wild men fought well. Oh, his father's eyes were on him, pale green, flecked with gold, so cool they gave Tyrion a chill. Did that surprise you, father? He asked. Did it upset your plans? We were supposed to be butchered, were we not?
Lord Tywin drained his cup, his face expressionless.
I put the least disciplined men on the left, yes. I anticipated that they would break. Robb Stark is a green boy, more like to be brave than wise. I hoped that if he saw our left collapse, he might plunge into the gap, eager for a rout. Once he was fully committed, Sir Kevin's pikes would wheel and take him in the flank, driving him into the river while I brought up the reserve.
And you thought it best to place me in the midst of this carnage, yet you kept me ignorant of your plans.
A feigned rout is less convincing, his father said. And I am not inclined to trust my plans to a man who consorts with sellswords and savages.
So that, to me, was like, Sean, that is just like hold on. You just conscripted these sellswords and savages into your army to do your work, and then turn around and be like, well, yeah, I sent them to die, and yeah, I sent you to die. You consort with savages.
Yep,
why would I tell you my plans? Like, that is incredible. Nettles, your thoughts on that? Did you heard the end of that exchange?
Oh, yeah.
There?
No, yeah. Yeah, just more on the vein with all the Lannister themes. It's just just on brand. Self-preservation. Everything that we've read, I've been keeping notes, always reports back to Lan the Clever and his traits. Like, all of these Lannisters, like, that's all they're doing. Like, when I mentioned Freud earlier, like, how your parents order your steps. Well, this is a great, progenitor. Lan the Clever is still ordering their steps, and even like these decisions here, and like it, I don't know. That's just what I think.
Yeah, no, he's their archetypal father.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So a feigned route is less convincing. Like, that's just like, oh, right. Oh, so you needed me to really be struggling to.
Yeah.
Cool. So,
I
and then he
I
says,
love
"A pity
how
my
he's
sap." Oh,
sitting
go
at a
ahead.
table. Sorry, I do love how he's sitting at a table alone with his pinky out, drinking wine, while all of this is going on.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, I mean that's why I read that quote where like he commands from the rear, where he's very safe and can watch everything, and then he sort of commands the vanguard, or not the vanguard, the reserve. So he waits until the battle is in the balance, and then he makes sure he's a part of the force that rides in to tip it over and win. I mean, it makes strategic sense, but it's also just fitting. He's a lead from the behind kind of guy. So, a pity my savages ruined your dance. Tyrion pulled off his steel gauntlet and let it fall to the ground, wincing at the pain that stabbed up his arm.
I'm sorry, I'm lost. Where
The
did we
Stark
go?
boy approved.
Oh,
The Stark boy proved more cautious than I expected for one of his years,
Lord Tywin admitted.
but a victory is a victory. You appear to be wounded.
Tyrion's right arm was soaked with blood. Good of you to notice, father, he said through clenched teeth. Might I trouble you to send for your maesters? Unless you relish the notion of having a one-armed dwarf for a son. An urgent shout of Lord Tywin turned his father's head before he could reply. Tywin Lannister rose to his feet as Sir Adam Marbrand leapt down off his courser. The horse was lathered and bleeding from the mouth. Sir Adam dropped to one knee, a rangy man with dark copper hair that fell to his shoulders, armored in burnished bronze steel with a fiery tree. Georgius, no time for symbolism. My liege, we have taken some of their commanders. Lord Serwyn, Sir Willis Manderley, Harrion Karstark, four Freys. Lord Hornwood is dead, and I fear Roose Bolton has escaped us.
And the boy?
Sir Adam hesitated. The Stark boy was not with them, my lord. They say he crossed the Twins with the greater part of his horse, riding hard for River Run. A green boy, Tyrion remembered, more like to be brave than wise. He would have laughed if he hadn't hurt so much. So this is the moment, this is the bomb drop here, when it's like, oh, your great victory, Robb did to you what you thought you were doing to Robb. He made you think you were winning while he did something else.
Yeah. And Robb is laughing at the Lannisters. So here's a turn now. Like the past conversations, nobody was laughing at the Lannisters. And now in here, we have someone laughing at the Lannisters. And I think this is partly why, we were talking about these Lannisters hold these grudges. Tyrion had to smash Marillion's hand. He just had to. Couldn't help himself. Tywin has to punish Robb for this. That's why, this is partly why he orchestrated that red wedding.
Interesting.
How dare you, green little boy? Sir, what are you doing? Oh, no. We got to show people what happens when you outsmart Tywin. Make sure this never happens again.
He's going to reach his big box of war crimes.
Matt Folger points out the one-armed dwarf for a son. That was foreshadowing for Jaime's hand being chopped.
Yeah. Also, really good because it happened on a river, so it's definitely a Hammer of the Waters thing.
Rolling on the river. There's no time for symbolism, George. Look, if I cut George off, I'm going to cut you off too.
That's fair.
But yeah, that is a great point, Nettles. That humiliation, that's the kind of thing.
Big one.
Yeah, just like Tyrion earlier in the chapter, like writing down all the names, like I will remember. And yeah, Tywin's like, yeah, make a fool out of me. We'll see. See about that.
He's got his Mean Girls burn book.
Robb is a skank.
So one of the big questions that has emerged about Shay is, was she sent by Tywin? Was she a plant via Bronn from the beginning? And I read the passage, and I think it's pretty suggestive.
It's one of those things we'll never know, so we can have as much fun as we want. It could be either way.
So, let's see here. Nettles, do you want to do Bronn?
Sure.
And then, Sean, you do Tyrion.
Oh, okay.
This is a short passage, but it's pretty good.
where are we starting? Bronn was seated?
Yes.
Bronn was seated cross-legged under a chestnut tree where they'd tied the horses. He was honing the edge of his sword, wide awake. The sellsword did not seem to sleep like other men. Where did you find her? Oh, that's not me. Did not sleep like other men.
Where did you find her? Tyrion asked him as he pissed. Oh, great.
I took her from her knight. The man was loath to give her up, but your name changed his thinking somewhat. That and my dirk at his throat.
Splendid, Tyrion said dryly, shaking off the last drops. I seem to recall saying, find me a whore, not make me an enemy.
The pretty ones were all claimed. I'll be pleased to take her back if you prefer a toothless drab.
Tyrion limped closer to where he sat. My lord father would call that insolence and send you to the mines for impertinence.
Good for me, you're not your father, Bronn replied. I saw one with boils all over her nose. Would you like her?
What, and break your heart? Tyrion shot back. I shall keep Shay. Do you perchance note the name of this knight you took her from? I'd rather not have him beside me in the battle.
Bronn rose, cat quick and cat graceful, turning his sword in his hand. You'll have me beside you in the battle, dwarf.
Tyrion nodded. The night air was warm on his bare skin. See that I survive this battle, and you can name your reward.
Bronn tossed the long sword from his right hand to his left and tried a cut. Who'd want to kill the likes of you?
My lord father, for one. He's put me in the van.
I'd do the same. A small man with a big shield. You'll give the archers fits.
Okay, cool. That's the part I wanted to read. So there's a couple of things I want to point out. One, great job, Nuttles. Two, the best brawn that's ever been brawned. So interesting here. First of all, the story is kind of over the top. Oh yeah, I put a dirk to his neck, and all the other ones were ugly, and there was the spotted one and the one with boils. And then he's like, "What's the name of the knight?" And he never says it. He doesn't give a name. He just sort of changes the subject. So I think, and there's another clue here. So let's see here. Where is it? He says,
Good for me, you're not your father, or no?
right. He says, what's the name? And he's like, oh, I'd rather not have him beside me in battle. And he's like, oh, I'll be beside you in battle. So he doesn't give the name. And he's like, besides, who'd want to kill you? And he's like, my dad. So it's like, who sent this spy? Maybe his dad is the one. And I think Bronn sells him out at the trial when he's given the Stokeworth lordship by Tywin, who is then sleeping with Shay. So seems like, I don't know. Let's do this for a vote. I will type this up here.
Yeah, that's a good one. How long was Shay? When did Shay start?
Did Tywin use Bronn to plant?
Oh God, Maynard James Plum, come get your boy.
I've got my computer elevated for the good camera angle, so I have to type like this. That's why it's super awkward for me. But there we go. We will see. We will see.
So where did we find Bronn in the end of the crown? Because this question begs another question: is why would Tywin use Bronn? Bronn has no last name. Because to answer my own question,
Well,
he would use-
Oh, you
Go.
answered. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say he would use Bronn if he thought that Bronn was smarter than most men. Like if he looks at Tyrion and his retinue, he's like, mountain men, they don't have brain cells. Wait, Bronn. So if he thought Bronn was trustworthy, capable, able to read, he would choose him. But why would Bronn be all those things?
Well, the thing is, like, if you're Bronn and Tywin comes to you and is like, I see you're friends with my son.
Yeah.
And he's like, and he wants to pay you to spy. It's like, what are you going to say? No?
No, you're gonna say yes.
Like
But my
whatever
question-
whatever pull Tyrion has, Tywin has more. So it's
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
one person that Tyrion specifically can't outpromise to either Shay or Bronn is Tywin.
Yeah. But my question is, does this mean that Bronn has a last name? Like, what makes, like, why is he the only one capable in this whole team?
No, Tywin would have observed Bronn with Tyrion when he's come
Yeah.
down from the Vale. Because I'm not saying Tywin, he didn't plant Bronn. Like Bronn, that's too far back. He met
Yeah.
Bronn like on the
Maybe.
way to the Vale. I'm saying that.
In the
You think
river.
that's-
Keep going.
Okay,
Keep
I'm
going.
saying that Tywin simply would have seen Bronn with Tyrion and been like, there's an easily corruptible guy that I can go to and turn into an informant. And that he used him to plant Shay with Tyrion, and now Tyrion's informants are all reporting back to Tywin, just like Ramsay's boys are really Roos's boys.
Well, he's just taking an interest in what's going on in his son's life, really.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
we'll see. I'm still curious about Bronn, though.
Love that one.
Well, when did they meet? At the crossroads, right?
In at the crossroads, yeah.
Yeah, I don't see how Tywin would have predicted
Well,
that.
Bronn, well, it's just Bronn offering himself up and, like, I don't know. He ingratiated himself with Tyrion. He stuck around, kept sticking around. So it's like,
I think that all makes sense.
yeah.
Well,
Just as because Bronn's opportunistic, like that's kind of the
Yeah.
straight line with him. He's not loyal to anyone. He's just opportunistic, right?
Bronn is brokering a hooker as he is basically a sword hooker.
Yeah.
Sure.
A dirty man for a dirty job. Just kidding.
He's
It's not that dirty.
Trying to become a madam, climb the ranks.
Yeah, a sellsword. I mean, it is what it is. You're just selling stuff. Whether it's because if you're selling your sword, you're selling your body in a different way. You're
Oh, yeah.
absolutely doing that. So 70-30. So yes, it looks like the fandom does agree that Tywin used Bronn to plant Shay with Tyrion. I definitely think so.
Oh,
After looking
man.
at this.
This would be so dark. No, go ahead, Sean.
Oh no, that was all I was saying. I'm just saying I stand off. Like I don't think we really have enough evidence either way, and I'm the cautious one. This is nothing.
Yeah.
He's not one of my clients, so that's not why I'm saying it.
It makes sense. There's definitely not overwhelming evidence, but I think it makes sense if that's what George was thinking.
It's open, especially because Bronn didn't answer the question, which night did you take him from? Because that's an easy question to answer.
Uh-huh.
Where'd you get those shoes? Oh, these are Nikes. Like, where'd you get this woman? Like, you know who you took her from. Come on.
Right, and then he's distracting him with all these very colorful lies and stuff. So yeah, that's how I read it.
But it's messed up on Tywin's behalf. If we're talking about Lannister psychology, I'm going to take my son's weakness, which is love from a woman, and use it against him. Guys,
And then that's how he gets killed.
this is messed up. Yeah, well, that's the thing. Oh, yeah, that's good, Sean. Yeah, him doing this gets him killed. It signs his death. Wow, but yeah, but still, the type of man to do this, like, this is beyond diabolical.
Yeah, so like and it makes sense that he would because he in fact does use sex workers. As we've all concluded, the tunnel to Taisha's is Tywin. So
Yeah.
he's like shaming his son for using sex workers while not only using them himself in King's Landing, but using them as spies on his son as well. So he's just like he's saying, oh, consort with, mountain clansmen. It's like, bro, you just had them do your dirty work for you. You consort with them.
Yeah. And if Tywin was able to instruct Shay, I don't know if he talked to Shay personally, if he gave the command to Bronn, but I could imagine he would tell Shay, make him fall in love with you. Because he knows Tyrion is smart. You're not just going to get like a one night stand sex worker to tell you your secrets. But if you make him fall in love with you, he'll tell you everything. And that's what's, to me, in my mind, so dirty and disgusting.
And then she ends up working in the kitchens in the Red Keep, which would be, adjacent enough to be passing information. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, the whole thing of not telling Tyrion who the knight was, it plays towards a greater theme where I think it has to do with faceless men, but knights being faceless men clad all in steel. That's from the Septon Maribald speech, and it pops up everywhere. How like knights are basically anonymous, and their loyalty is up in the air because like, are you following the knightly oaths, or are you following what the Lord told you to do? Are you loyal to a person, a code? Like what's going on? So yeah, very, very like faceless men, like what are their loyalties type thing going on.
Let's see here. I am looking at this passage where Oberyn is speaking to Tyrion in the Black Cells, and he tells a little bit of a story, which I think is pretty interesting. Let's see here. They're talking about sex workers using the W word quite liberally. And Oberyn says, the W word that I was referring to is your sister. And Tyrion says, has she seduced you yet? Oberyn laughed aloud. Sean.
No, but she will if I meet her price. The queen has even hinted at marriage. Her grace needs another husband, and who better than a prince of Dorne? Ilaria believes I should accept. Just the thought of Cersei in our bed makes her wet. The ranty wench. And we should not even need to pay the dwarf's penny. All your sister requires from me is one head, somewhat overlarge and missing a nose.
And Tyrion said, waiting.
By way of Prince Oberyn swirling his wine.
Now you're out.
And said,
When the young dragon conquered Dorne so long ago, he left the Lord of Highgarden to rule us after the submission of Sunspear. This Tyrell moved with his tail from keep to keep, chasing rebels and making certain that our knees stayed bent. He would arrive in force, take a castle for his own, stay a moon's turn, and ride on to the next castle. It was his custom to turn the lords out of their own chambers and take their beds for himself. One night he found himself beneath a heavy velvet canopy. A sash hung down near the pillows. Should he wish to summon a wench? He had a taste for Dornish women, this Lord Tyrell, and who can blame him? So he pulled upon the sash, and when he did, the canopy above him split open, and 100 red scorpions fell down upon his head. His death lit a fire that soon swept across Dorne, undoing all the young dragon's victories in a fortnight. The kneeling men stood up, and we were free again.
I know the tale, said Tyrion. What of it? And it's a good story, by the way. This is just a great bit of Dornish culture that I saw lurking in here and wanted to get. But carry on, Oberyn.
Just this. If I should ever find a sash beside my own bed and pull on it, I would sooner have the scorpions fall upon me than the queen in all her naked beauty.
Which is quite, you have to take your hat off to Oberyn for the setup here. He told an entire story just to be like, I'd rather be in bed with scorpions than Cersei.
Dang.
Tyrion grinned. We have that much in common then. So he's like, yeah, no, they offered, she asked me to kill you, but no, that's not what I want. That's not why I'm here.
To be sure, I have much to thank your sister for. If not for her accusation at the feast, it might well be you judging me instead of me judging you.
The prince's eyes were dark with amusement.
Who knows more of poison than the Red Viper of Dorne, after all? Who has better reason to want to keep the Tyrells far from the crown? And with Joffrey in his grave, by Dornish law, the Iron Throne should pass next to his sister Myrcella, who, as it happens, is betrothed to my own nephew, thanks to you.
Dornish law does not apply. Tyrion had been so ensnared in his own troubles that he'd never stopped to consider the succession. My father will crown Tommen. Count on that.
He may indeed crown Tommen, here in King's Landing. Which is not to say that my brother may not crown Marcella down in Sunspear. Will your father make war on your niece on behalf of your nephew? Will your sister? He gave a shrug. Perhaps I should marry Queen Cersei after all, on the condition that she support her daughter over her son. Do you think she would?
This is an incredible passage here because, much like the Brandon, and I want to get you in on this, Nettles, much like the conversation between Kat and Jaime about Brandon, there are these moments when certain characters who don't talk to each other very much just relish the information that they hold that the other person doesn't have. And like the things that come out in these moments are explosive. And we see people that have a composure for the public, all of a sudden they drop it and they're talking straight. And this, like, yeah, it's like, what if I set, Marcella against Tommen? And it's just like, oh my gosh, Oberyn has some galaxy brain thoughts here about ways to cause trouble for House Lannister. And you just never even fathomed this. But of course, later on, Arianne does do this exact thing. She follows this exact train of thought, and it's already been laid out by Oberyn here. So where did Arianne maybe get the idea to do this? He maybe heard Oberyn sort of saying, hey, Doran, if we wanted to, we always could set the two kids, So like, it's a pretty interesting mask off moment, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. And this is just George being the planter of a writer, because this conversation is not about that. Yet it's inserted. So I like that. I like Oberyn.
Right, because we need to understand Oberyn's... Sorry, what's that?
Oh, I just said he had way too much fun writing Oberyn.
Definitely. And we need to understand Oberyn's rationale for supporting Tyrion. And so that's why we're getting this exposition here. And of course, Tyrion needs to understand why Oberyn is supporting him, because Oberyn wants Tyrion to rely on him and to do this trial by combat so he can fight Gregor and have his revenge in a legal fashion. So this is all pretty fascinating. I think there is more, though. And he's going through and he's thinking about, oh yeah, maybe this could cause trouble. He says, I don't know how my sister would choose between Tommen and Marcella. It makes no matter. My father will never give her that choice. And then Oberyn says, your father may not live forever. Something about the way he said it made the hairs on the back of Tyrion's neck bristle. Suddenly he was mindful of Elia again and all that Oberyn had said as they crossed the field of ashes. He wants the head that spoke the words, not just the hand that swung the sword. It is not wise to speak of such treasons in the Red Keep. The little birds are always listening. Let them. Is it treason to say a man is mortal? Valor Morgulus is how they said it in Valyria of old. All men must die, and the doom came and proved it true. So he's talking about hubris here, right?
Hubris, yeah.
And it is being said that you have no... So then they go on and talk about offering to fight. And I think there is the whole story of when they came to Casterly Rock here too, right? He goes... So Oberyn talks about the death of Rhaenys, the violence... Gregor Clegane, the rape of Elia, all that stuff. He said, go ahead and read from What Is This Now? Truth from a Lannister. Actually, no, I'll go back. I am not lying. Oh, let's see. No. There was, let's see. What is the lie he's accusing him of? Let's see.
Between Sir Amory Lorch and Gregor Clegane, like who actually committed the atrocities against his family. And Tywin had told him that it was all Sir Amory Lorch because he's dead.
Right.
Because he's dead,
it was Sir Gregor Clegane who smashed Prince Aegon's head against a wall and raped her sister Elia with his blood and brains still on his hands. And then Oberyn says...
What is this now? Truth from a Lannister?
Oberyn smiled coldly.
Your father gave the commands, yes?
No. He spoke the lie without hesitation and never stopped to ask himself why he should.
The Dornishman raised one thin black eyebrow.
Such a dutiful son, and such a very feeble lie. It was Lord Tywin who presented my sister's children to King Robert, all wrapped up in crimson Lannister cloaks.
Perhaps you ought to have this discussion with my father. He was there. I was at the Rock, and still so young that I thought the thing between my legs was only good for pissing.
Great. Yes, but you are here now, and in some difficulty, I would say. Your innocence may be as plain as the scar on your face, but it will not save you. No more than your father will. The Dornish prince smiled. But I might.
You, Tyrion studied him. You are one judge in 3. How could you save me?
Not as your judge. As your champion.
Ba-da-da-da. So that was fun. Nice Oberyn. Very nice. So...
Yeah,
this
I
is-
asked the chat. Sorry, I asked the chat, do they like Sean's Tywin or Oberyn? And everyone said Oberyn.
Oh, no.
I think
Because
it's just.
it
I
was
think
so
Oberyn's
unexpectedly
sexier.
good.
Oberyn's just sexier.
You got the menacing element of it, though, which is important, because he is very deadly. He is menacing.
I threatened 6 people on the way to the gas station. It's just practice.
Every morning before 7 a.m.
Yeah.
So, let's see. What is it that stood out here while you were reading?
For me, it's Tyrion lying. He said no.
Yeah.
Why are you lying to Obi? Why are
That
you
was
lying
definitely the biggest part of this.
Don't lie to Obi.
He also
Yeah,
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say he was introspecting while that was going on. He's like, why did I lie?
He knows why, because you have to.
Daddy.
He cannot tell Oberyn right now what he needs to know. He has to use him first.
My dad's about to behead me. I'm like, yeah, fuck that guy.
Oh, I think I wanted to highlight the fact that there's a pretty big clue that Oberyn poisoned Tywin here. I mean, this is probably where the theory comes from. So Oberyn's saying, your dad might not be long for this world.
Not for long.
And he just talked about how he should be accused of Joffrey's death because he's a master poisoner and all this and that. So,
Who
okay.
gave you the order?
Well, we are not even going to come anywhere close to getting through. I mean, what a mess. This family. I've got whole sections of quotes, whole categories of quotes. This would take 10 hours to get through. This was not realistic.
Where did Varys come from? No, the chat's talking about Varys.
Varys came during Aerys' reign.
Yeah, no, I mean in the chat, but it was.
No, people are just saying that you're so good that they want to hear Varys from you because it would be sneaky.
Oh, I could be sneaky.
Spooky.
So let's read. There's a passage between Jaime and Cersei that I think is pretty tasty. And so let me do this and let y'all do this one. It's not too long, and it also mentions something else that is important. And this will be from Storm or Feast. What do you guys think about, before we get into this one, what do you guys have to say about Cersei's struggle with her gender role? She is not, she doesn't hate being feminine, but she hates the fact that women don't have the same rights as men, and she does have a dominant personality. She wants to claim the firstborn status, but can't because she is a woman and is supposed to be a baby machine. So I'll give that to you, Nettles, first. But yeah, how do you think... It's interesting as a background for Cersei, isn't it? Because we can sympathize. This is one of the things where we start not sympathizing with Cersei, but understanding where her resentment comes from, right?
Yeah, I think Cersei's male identified, and the reason is because obviously the times, but also because she's the only girl. My brother grew up being the only boy. He had 2 sisters and my mom, and so that kind of my brother's very masculine, but he's very emotional, soft because of growing up with women. Cersei is the opposite. There are no other girls. If her mother was alive, she would be tempered because she would see an example of like, oh, it's okay to be a girl. But subconsciously, everywhere, her immediate family, Lannisters, we were just talking about, the only other people who are worthy of being spared a thought are all men, and she's not. So I think subconsciously, it's like I'm in the wrong body. Um, because I can't do the things that I want to do. I can't be a full Lannister wearing the woman's skin in order to come to fulfill my land the clever parallels and to seek ambition and to take what's mine because I'm entitled to it. I'm better than everyone. I deserve it. I need the male skin to do it. You're
You are
muted.
She wants to be Tywin, right?
Tywin.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other part of this is the fact that Jaime is attracted to strong women, right? Like two women that defy their gender roles in different ways, Cersei and Brienne. These are the two women that actually impress Jaime to earn some level of respect or him like listening to them. What is it? I just noticed that. I don't even know what to make of it.
Gender and sexuality are somewhat fluid, and Jaime is a confused guy, but he knows what he likes.
But Jaime also doesn't have a mother. Sometimes they say like some men go after women that look like their mothers or women that are opposite of their mothers, but Jaime has no mother to, like when he forms a picture, it's shady, it's blank. So I think that he's looking for his father again. So what he's attracted to is Cersei, who's like their father, or Brienne, who's martial like that father. So it's kind of like in the absence of a mother, I'm going to seek the father, the thing that I'm used to be attracted to.
I think Jaime just doesn't like respect any sort of meekness at all.
Yeah.
Isn't it? And neither Cersei or Brienne is meek.
Yeah.
But why doesn't he respect meekness?
Just doesn't see the value. It's just weakness to him, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right. I think I just heard Freud's coffin explode, but I think you're totally right about Jaime.
Yeah, it's just kind of interesting. So, okay.
And Cersei definitely there. I mean, when you talk about the things that she can't do and the fact that she's upset about her gender, like it's true. She definitely is getting held back in certain ways because of her gender, but she is also being held back because of her incompetence, stupidity, impetuousness, etc. And I know I know you wanted to just pile on to the Cersei train. But yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there are elements of both in that. That's why, like, George doesn't give straight answers to anything. It's always kind of both.
Yeah, he definitely doesn't like clear-cut, simplistic resolutions. He likes to pose questions and let us wrestle with them, for sure.
And then going back to that theme of Lannister narcissism, another genetic Lannister trait, with Jaime, it could just be like, I have to be attracted to something that's a mirror of me. And like Jaime and Cersei, I think are true Geminis because they have that dual personality. So for Jaime, Cersei is his id and Brienne is his super ego, but they both reflect him. Does that make sense?
Right, yes, because Cersei reflects his beauty and vanity and sense of elitism.
Evil, yeah.
And Brienne reflects his martial prowess and
Desire.
like the knight that he never could be, even.
Honor.
And you just fixed Freud. He's good now.
the super ego. So it makes sense why those are the women that Jaime would go after because he's narcissistic and he's going to choose women that are him.
Good analysis. That was incredible analysis. Do you want to follow up with any comments on the narcissistic nature of Jaime and Cersei as twins who are committing incest? Because there's something there.
Yeah. So there was definitely one of the bullet points that I put down was about Lannister reflections and Lannisters killing their reflections. You know, the Lannisters fighting the Reigns. To your point earlier, Nettles, the Lannister kind of civil wars and cold wars and all that, the conflict in between. So the fact that he he went for Cersei initially, but then they're kind of moving towards a Cold War and eventually strife, and probably Jaime, Cersei, Valonqar is all playing into exactly that. Cats don't
Yeah.
like their reflections.
Is it a
Regarding-
kind of love-hate thing then? Because there's initially they're in love with their reflections, and then there's this split, like Jaime and Cersei split, the Rains and Castamere split. Is that part of the? Is
What's
that
the
just the
call?
second act, or like what happens first? We have some sort of self-love that is narcissistic. Like we were just saying, Jaime likes people that reflect the best attributes of himself, right? Nettles?
They're speed running through psychological archetypes.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, yeah.
Right.
Another aspect about narcissistic people is it comes from another Lannister genetic trait, which is self-preservation. Like people don't just wake up and choose to be narcissistic. It's something sometimes that starts as an infant, and it's like you put the baby down and you don't pick it up and the baby is crying, and over time the baby learns that no one's going to feed me, no one cares about me. I have to care about myself. And then they become super hyper vigilant about caring about themselves, that it turns into narcissism, because you have to say, like when you're in the track tournament and you lose and it hurts you, but to protect yourself, self-preservation, you have to think like, I'm the best runner. I'm like, you over-grandize yourself and brainwash yourself into thinking that you're greater than you are, so that you can protect yourself against neglect. And we as humans,
that is exactly Cersei for sure.
Yeah.
And why did you feel the need to personally attack me?
That's what I'm here for, boo. I'm here to but yeah, so self-preservation tied in with narcissism. We're brewing up a Lannister, cocktail, going back to Lan the Clever, who was so narcissistic, he thought that, man, the Casterlys don't know how to run no castle. I can do this better. So let me self-preserve my lineage by taking this thing over.
Okay, well, the chat is going back not quite as far as Lan the Clever. Tywin, of course, loves Jaime as a reflection of himself with hair, basically. Much like Illyrio with the statue to his younger self. Jaime is Tywin's statue. Okay, and then the same. What's that?
Sorry, I no, I thought you paused. Go ahead.
And then with Cersei, same thing. She's the most beautiful maiden in the land, and she was married to, Rhaegar. So Aerys spurned him. He wanted to marry Cersei to the most beautiful prince, who was Rhaegar. Aerys spurned him and humiliated him, and so he helped bring about Aerys' downfall, and then married his daughter to Robert, the new king. So you can see Cersei is being used as an extension of Lannister glory and pride and all that stuff. So yeah, this is heavily narcissistic. All of it. Yeah.
Genetic trait.
Right. Right.
Right. Tywin, so obviously you see the narcissism up close with Jaime and Cersei having their long-time relationship. But Tywin did almost the same thing. He found a cousin who has the classic Lannister look. And, I mean, it's just not different.
Matt Folger just sent a super chat, but Matt, I don't know if I agree with that. Cersei does use sex to manipulate. She does it with Lancel and the Kettle Blacks.
And Jaime.
Yes.
Yeah. She comes back after his hand is off when she wants something from him to do, sex things.
Yes, yeah. She alternates between abusing him and putting him down, and then sort of like hitting on him when she wants something after he comes back. That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and sorry to pile on Matt, but even your second point, she doesn't use poison to kill. She would. I don't think Cersei would be like, oh, that's too cowardly or low for me. I mean, she gives Robert strong wine, which is in a way is kind of poisoning him. In a way, it's not actual poison, but it's giving him an excess, something that could kill him.
If you're giving somebody substances that yeah, I mean that's essentially it's the same sort of moral action.
Yeah.
She doped him, not cool.
Now, it's definitely a fitting and just downfall for Robert using his indulgence against him. Like chef's kiss as far as like the Game of Thrones and all that. But
Yeah.
but yes, she's not above poisoning. I don't think that makes any sense to say that. She's said, I mean, she's feeding innocent people to Qyburn's torture chamber in the black cells. She's not above anything.
Yeah.
Sean likes Matt standing up for Cersei. Nice. You guys are fun. I'm glad you guys are all having fun in the chat here.
I'm standing up for Matt. He's gonna work his way up the ladder with sex apparently, and you know, I respect it. If you no shame in that game if you can get it done.
So,
The opinions of the guests are not necessarily endorsed by no.
Something word.
So I've got it. Oh, unless you have a thought, Nettles, let's dive into this little passage here. Beginning with this line, and this would be you.
that's me? Okay.
No, this would be Jaime starting off, Sean.
Okay.
Cersei was in her solar in Maegor's holdfast with Tommen and Lord Merryweather's dark-haired Myrish wife. The three of them were laughing at Grand Maester Pycelle. Did I miss some clever jape? Jaime said, as he shoved through the door.
Oh, look, purred Lady Merryweather. Your brave brother has returned, Your Grace. Most of him. The Queen was in her... Oh,
Yeah.
That's Cersei.
that's... Okay,
Yes,
most of
Do you
him.
want me to
The
do
Queen
Lady
was-
Merryweather so you can focus on Cersei?
Sure.
Okay.
Most of him. The Queen was in her cups, Jaime realized.
I'm feeling sexy. I can do Lady Merryweather. Go ahead.
Of late, Cersei always seemed to have a flagon of wine to hand. She, who had once something Robert Baratheon for
Scorned.
his drinking.
Sorry.
That's he misliked that, but these days he seemed to mislike everything his sister did. Grand Maester, she said, share the tidings with the Lord Commander, if you would.
Pycelle looked desperately uncomfortable. There has been a bird from Stokeworth. Lady Tanda sends word that her daughter Lawless has been delivered of a strong, healthy son.
And you will never guess what they have named the little bastard, brother.
They wanted to name him Tywin, I recall.
Yes, but I forbade it. I told Felice that I would not have our father's noble name bestowed upon the ill-gotten spawn of some pig boy and a feeble-witted sow.
Let me do Pycelle so you don't so I can get in a little bit here. But you got the yes, that's the right idea. Lady Stokeworth insists the child's name was not her doing, Grandmaster Pycelle put in. Perspiration dotted his wrinkled forehead. Lawless's husband. I can just imagine him saying Lawless's husband made the choice, he writes. This man Braun, it would seem that he...
Tyrion, ventured Jaime. He named the child Tyrion.
The old man gave a tremulous nod, mopping at his brow with the sleeve of his robe.
Jaime had to laugh. There you are, sweet sister. You've been looking everywhere for Tyrion, and all the time he's been hiding in Lawless's womb.
Sorry, that's...
Droll. You and Bronn are both so droll. No doubt the bastard is sucking on one of Lollis Lackwit's dugs even as we speak, whilst this sellsword looks on, smirking at his little insolence.
Perhaps this child bears some resemblance to your brother, suggested Lady Merryweather. He might have been born deformed or without a nose. She laughed a throaty laugh.
We shall have to send the darling boy a gift. Won't we, Tommen?
We could send him a kitten.
That's
A
you.
lion cub, said Lady... Oh, sorry. I was just vamping out on the fact that Tommen is in the room at all.
I know.
I just spun me for a loop. I forgot he was there. A lion cub, said Lady Merryweather. To rip his little throat out, her smile suggested.
I had a different sort of gift in mind, said Cersei.
Sushan.
A new stepfather, most like. Jaime knew the look in his sister's eyes. He had seen it before. Most recently on the night of Tommen's wedding, when she burned the Tower of the Hand. The green light of the wildfire
Sorry, go ahead.
had bathed the face of the watchers, so they looked like nothing so much as rotting corpses, a pack of gleeful ghouls. But some of the corpses were prettier than others. Even in the baleful glow, Cersei had been beautiful to look upon. She'd stood with one hand on her breast, her lips parted, her green eyes shining. She is crying, Jaime had realized, but whether it was from grief or ecstasy, he could not have said. Keep going.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good psychology.
Absolutely. Yes, this is what. Yeah, I want this.
Yeah. The
I'm
sight
going to
had
create a
filled,
couple moderators real quick. Just the heads up, if I give you powers, that means you're a moderator now. Go ahead.
with great power comes great responsibility. The sight had filled him with disquiet, reminding him of Aerys Targaryen in the way a burning would arouse him. A king has no secrets from his Kingsguard. Relations between Aerys and his queen had been strained during the last years of his reign. They slept apart and did their best to avoid each other during the waking hours. But whenever Aerys gave a man to the flames, Queen Rhaella would have a visitor in the night. The day he burned his mace and dagger hand, Jaime and Jon Darry had stood at guard outside her bedchamber whilst the king took his pleasure.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Well, you don't need to act that. Just read
Yeah.
it as if it's in a monologue.
Yeah.
You're hurting me, they had heard Rhaella cry through the oaken door. You're hurting me! In some queer way that had been worse than Lord Chelstead's screaming. We are sworn to protect her as well, Jaime had finally been driven to say. We are, Darry allowed, but not from him.
And then
Jaime had-
we could stop there. There's a little more about she had never been seen. She left cloaked and hooded. She looked as if some beast had savaged her. A crowned beast, Jaime knew. And then it said, by the end, the Mad King had become so fearful he would allow no blade in his presence, save for the swords of his Kingsguard. His beard was matted and unwashed. His hair was a silver gold tangle that reached his waist. His fingernails cracked yellow claws 9 inches long. So whatever you saw on House of the Dragon, basically, with Alicent and Viserys, this was much, much worse. This is the worst version of, marriage that's actually the R word. This is violent and, it's one of those things where George puts this stuff in so we know not everything is like hearsay and Maester revision. Like Ares is a genuine psychopath. He's not just, they say he was crazy because he had dragon dreams. Like, no, he burned people alive. He abused his wife. And then here's Jon Darry, like Gerald Hightower, to say, no, Jaime, it's not the knightly oaths that you have to follow anymore. It's just loyalty to a man, even if he's a monster. And just what sense does that make? Like, what honor do any of these Kingsguard really have when they're standing around enabling this kind of stuff? That's obviously the question we as the reader are supposed to ask when the honor becomes so hollow. And this is why we sympathize with Jaime, because he's pretty much right. And this is the same commentary that the Hound gives, also very cynical, talking about oaths and true knights and stuff. And then it's no accident that the truest knights in the story are Dunk and Brienne, neither of whom are official knights. So this isn't super subtle. I know I'm saying stuff that's like, most people know this, but this is the center of Jaime's arc too, being caught in this. And remember, he was sworn to the Kingsguard when he was 15. When I was like 13, I thought I wanted to be a Navy SEAL. Okay?
Really?
Yeah, I wanted to be a football player in my junior year. Or sophomore year, I tried out for varsity football and realized I was like, oh, jocks, weightlifting. That's what I'd have. No, that's not what I want at all. I'm
Yeah.
not like I am not cut out to be a Navy SEAL. Let me tell you, that would have lasted about 5 minutes from just disobedience and me being a wimp. That's just not. So Jaime at 15, he's full of delusions of grandeur about knighthood and the Kingsguard and all that. And then I couldn't find the exact quote, but of course he figures out that as soon as he's not made knight of the Kingsguard as an honor. Aerys did it to steal him from his father and humiliate Tywin, and now he has to stand around and listen to Aerys abuse his wife and stuff, and listen to John Derry be like, no, it's honorable to stand here and enable this. And so now you start to see where Jaime's brokenness comes from, right? Either of you guys can pick it up. So
Yeah, we all know that Cersei has slights made against her. Tyrion has slights made against him, but we all think of Jaime as the lucky Lannister, the golden boy. But this is a big thing, what you just mentioned. Like, Aerys took away Jaime's life, his dream. Imagine how you would feel. Like, you think that you earned something, you think that you're the best at your job, and you find out that no, you just got it because of who your dad is, or you just got it for just any reason that's not of your own prowess. And so, like, what else does Jaime have to look up to? Like, this is like the Olympics. If you're an athlete, what's higher than the Olympics? Like, so what does he have to live for is the second question. Like, what does your honor mean when, like, your dream has been smashed permanently forever?
Yeah, well, the relevant quote is, "It was the white cloak that soiled me."
Yeah.
yes, that's you can see how true that is.
And it's oh, go ahead.
No, you go.
Okay.
You.
So we have you have Jaime dissociating in the throne room when he's seeing like Brandon and them getting burned. You have him dissociating in all these situations. You have Alicent in a very similar way when she's, having to do her wifely duties with Viserys, definitely dissociating. Probably not like doing her taxes or a grocery list in her head, but something, really sad. But then Rhaella does not have that luxury. It's too real. It's more personal. It's being done to her. Like, there's no way to dissociate from that. And Jaime can't dissociate from it either when he's put in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think another thing I just wanted to say regarding these two paragraphs that we read is that Jaime, even though he's a guy and men are stupid, even he realizes that, like, Rhaella's screams are harder to hear than Chelstead. And so what I'm breaking down is Rhaella's still alive. But the pain of being for a lot of women, they'll say that being Ard is worse than death. And that's kind of, I think, what I'm choosing to see is that George is showing us here that, like, Rhaella's screams are worse than a man being burned alive. Think of what that sounds like and think of what's being done with her. And in this case, I feel like because Jaime identifies that this screaming is worse, that it means that he's more moved to help her.
Yeah,
and
because Chelstead and those other lords, they're playing the Game of Thrones and they lost.
Yeah.
Like, from a
But
certain
I'm saying
perspective.
the sound of their screams, like,
Yeah.
whether
Yeah, I would just say, because Rhaella's not playing the Game of Thrones. She's just doing her job as a wife and trying to have heirs to a crazy king. Yeah, it's like, it's just the victimization is just so clear in that situation. And it is powerful. It is moving. And it just shows you that, like, of course there's a person under all that cynicism with Jaime. Like, again, all this was done to him when he was 15. And he's become broken by the age of 18 or 19 or whatever. But, like, originally, he was probably just a normal kid. He didn't push his friend down a well. That was Cersei. No. Cersei's the one that's extra twisted or whatever.
No, and it definitely plays toward the knightly vows, because, I mean, he doesn't care about this. This is a powerful lord who became Hand of the King because, he sucked up and played the Game of Thrones and, crossed some moral lines, no doubt. But, and Rhaelle is more innocent, as you were saying, but, protect women and children, protect the weak. Like, these are all these vows, and he's having trouble reconciling them with being a Kingsguard. And that is a big reason why this is harder for him to hear than Lord Chelstead, because the vows are clashing. And just to kind of drive that home, in both of the situation where the vows are clashing, he has another more seasoned Kingsguard take him aside and be like, nope, don't do anything.
And more to that point, it's like, ever since he put on that cloak, has he ever defended a woman or child? Because he couldn't do anything for Rhaenys and Elia. He couldn't, like, has all, it seems like all he's been doing is the wrong thing, right? Or am I not thinking of something?
So
Like,
more recently, basically because of Brienne's example, there are some places and times where he kind of does the right thing, defends
Oh
people.
yeah, he rescued Pia at
Pia.
Harrenhal, didn't he? Yeah.
okay.
And he does it with all of his, trademarked cynicism and sarcasm to kind of cover for the fact that he's actually doing the right thing, almost like he's embarrassed to do the right thing.
Yeah, and and when he was collecting Edmure down from the gallows, he made a special point of humiliating whichever Frey, Ryman Frey, wasn't it? I don't know if that's doing the right thing, but it sure felt good to read.
Yeah.
That was a great scene. We did that
Yeah.
one fairly recently.
In this house, Freys are heroes.
Weasel
What?
face Freys with their pointy hats.
I'm kidding. They're the worst.
Let's see. Okay, so his beard was matted and unwashed. His silver, just to finish this up, his hair a silver gold tangle that reached his waist, fingernails cracked, blah, blah, blah. Yet still the blades tormented him, the ones he could never escape, the blades of the Iron Throne. His arms and legs were always covered with scabs and half-healed cuts.
Let him be king over charred bones and cooked meat.
Jaime remembered, studying his sister's smile.
Let him be the king of ashes.
Your Grace, he said, might we have a private word? Oh, and then he speaks to, okay, so this is, him talking, oh, this is more Jaime Cersei, yeah, let's go back to reading here. There's more. So that was Jaime, Your Grace, and then that is you, Cersei, as you wish.
As you wish, Tommen. It is past time you had your lesson for the day. Go with the Grand Maester.
Yes, Mother. We're learning about Baelor the Blessed. Lady Merryweather took her leave as well, kissing the Queen on both cheeks. Shall I return for supper, Your Grace?
I shall be very cross with you if you do not.
Ooh.
Jaime could not help but note the way the Mirish woman moved her hips as she walked. Every step is a seduction. When the door closed behind her, he cleared his throat and said, First these kettle blacks, then Qyburn, now her? It's a queer menagerie you are keeping these days, sweet sister.
I'm growing very fond of Lady Tyaina. She amuses me.
Come step up.
She is one of Marjorie Tyrell's companions, Jaime reminded her. She's informing on you to the little queen.
Of course she is. Cersei went to the sideboard to fill her cup anew. Marjorie was thrilled when I asked her to leave to take Tyaina as my companion. When I asked her leave to take Tyaina as my companion. You should have heard her. She would be a sister to you, as she's been to me. Of course you must have her. I have my cousins and my little ladies. Our little queen does not want me to be lonely.
If you know she is a spy, why take her on?
Marjorie is not half so clever as she thinks. She has no notion what a sweet serpent she has in that Mirish sloot. I use Tyaina to feed the little queen what I want her to know. Some of it is even true. Cersei's eyes were bright with mischief, and Tyaina tells me everything Maid Marjorie's doing.
Does she? How much do you know about this woman?
I know she is a mother with a young son that she wants to rise high in the world. She will do whatever is required to see that he does. Mothers are all the same. Lady Merryweather may be a serpent, but she is far from stupid. She knows I can do more for her than Marjorie, so she makes herself useful to me. You'd be surprised at all the interesting things she's told me.
What sorts of things?
Cersei sat beneath the window. Did you know that the Queen of Thorns keeps a chest of coins in her wheelhouse, old gold from before the conquest. Should any tradesman be so unwise as to name a price in golden coins, she pays him with hands from Highgarden, each half the weight of one of our dragons. What merchant would dare complain of being cheated by Mace Tyrell's lady mother? She sipped her wine and said, "Did you enjoy your little ride?"
Our uncle remarked upon your absence.
Our uncle's remarks do not concern me.
They should. You could make good use of him. If not at Riverrun or the Rock, then in the north against Lord Stannis. Father always relied upon Kevan when...
Bruce Bolton is our warden of the north. He will deal with Stannis.
Lord Bolton is trapped below the neck, cut off from the north by the Iron Men at Moat Cailin.
Not for long. Bolton's bastard son will soon remove that little obstacle. Lord Bolton will have 2,000 Freys to augment his own strength under Lord Walder's sons Hostine and Aenys. That should be more than enough to deal with Stannis and a few thousand broken men.
Sir Kevan...
will have his hands full at Derry, teaching Lancel how to wipe his arse. Father's death has unmanned him. He's an old, done man. Davin and Damien will serve us better.
They'll suffice. Jaime had no quarrel with his cousins. You still require a hand, however. If not our uncle, who?
Not you! Have no fear on that count. Perhaps Tyrion's husband. His grandfather was hand under Aerys.
The Horn of Plenty hand. Jaime remembered Owen Merryweather well enough. An amiable man, but ineffectual. As I recall, he did so well that Aerys exiled him and seized his lands.
Robert gave them back. Some at least. Tyner would be pleased if Orton would recover the rest.
Is this about pleasing some Mirish whore? Here I thought it was about governing the realm.
I govern the realm.
7 save us all, you do. His sister liked to think of herself as Lord Tywin with teats, but she was wrong. Their father had been as relentless and implacable as a glacier, where Cersei was all wildfire, especially when thwarted. She had been giddy as a maiden when she learned that Stannis had abandoned Dragonstone, certain that he had finally given up the fight and sailed away to exile. When word came down from the north that he had turned up again at the wall, her fury had been fearful to behold. She does not lack for wits, but she has no judgment and no patience. You need a strong hand to help you.
A weak ruler needs a strong hand, as Aerys needed father. A strong ruler requires only a diligent servant to carry out his orders. She swirled her wine. Lord Halline might suit. He would not be the first pyromancer to serve as the king's hand.
No, I killed the last one.
Yeah, let's pause right there because first Cersei is like, "Oh, Merryweather," and Jaime's like, "Yeah, that was one of Aerys' hands that he dismissed or burned or exiled or something. Exiled, yeah." And
Exiled.
then it's like, "Oh, maybe the pyromancer." And then she even points out that's been done before. And Jaime says like, "Yeah, I killed the one. He was going to carry out Aerys' orders to burn the city. And so I put a sword through him." Pyromancers aren't really good hands of the king. It was a crazy person who did that, by the way. It's like Cersei citing that for precedent is kind of wild. Hang on, I've got, speaking of kind of wild.
Yeah.
Hi. Okay, so, yeah.
I think
Another
also,
man over here.
I hate to agree with Cersei because I hate her. But in this, I kind of agree with her here. And tell me if this makes me a bad person. I think she's right when she says a weak ruler needs a strong hand. Because a strong ruler just needs...
Oh, the main
someone-
thing she's wrong about is that she's the good ruler, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah,
Not-
she's wrong about that.
Sure,
But
the principle
idea
is...
that, like, because two strongs, like when you think about Aemon being a strong ruler and then having a hand as Kristen Cole as the strong ruler, that didn't really work out. When you have a strong king and a strong hand, that's not good. It has to be symbiotic in either way. What do you guys think of that?
Well, it's
Well,
fun. Go ahead, Sean.
oh, sorry. Well, good points. And we're not calling this Team Black's propaganda, but yeah, she makes the mistake of thinking that she's the strong ruler. She also, in while her theory is technically sound, she's not getting a diligent servant to carry out her orders. She's getting whoever kisses her ass enough, or like it's just like she has the formula correct, but she's putting in the wrong numbers.
And also, even just, she's right that like the job of the hand is to carry out the orders of the king, but knowing how to carry out those orders requires a lot of skill. So unless the king wants to micromanage, like that's why they have a hand, so that they don't have to micromanage and they can see the bigger picture. That's why I have Maynard James Plum as my YouTube manager to help keep his eye on the bigger picture while I'm making video by video. He's keeping track of all the other stuff. So Cersei is perhaps underselling that part of it. She's like, well, I just tell someone what to do and then they just do it. It's like, well, no, Cersei, you need someone really smart to turn your wish into a thing that's happening. Hashtag thing that's happening. So yeah, I'd say she's right, but she's glossing over that part. She's not thinking about having a qualified executor of her wishes.
Where are we?
You are. Oh, so I'm skipping to the end of this chapter because you mentioned Kristen Cole.
Yep.
This chapter
I saw that
closes
one.
with Jaime talking to Loras. And he says, let's see, they're looking at the book, looking through the book. They're talking about different Kingsguard, Roland Darkland. And the youngest man to ever serve in the Kingsguard until me, he was given a cloak on the battlefield and died within an hour of donning it. Oh, Loras says he can't have been very good. Jaime says, good enough. He died, but his king lived. A lot of brave men have worn the white cloak. Most have been forgotten. And then Loras says, most deserve to be forgotten. The heroes will always be remembered. The best. The best and the worst, Jaime corrects. So one of us is like to live in song. And he says, a few who were a bit of both, like him. He tapped the page that he had been reading. Who? So Loras craned his head around to see 10 black pellets on a scarlet field. I don't know those arms. They belonged to Sir Kristen Cole, who served the first Viserys and the second Aegon. Jaime closed the white book. They called him the Kingmaker. So, just a cool reference to House of the Dragon events there.
Yeah.
Well, very parallel characters for sure.
Yeah. Strong king. I forgot that Kristen was a Kingsguard for some reason, but yeah. It's even more of a parallel about him being just that strong hand. Damn, yeah.
There it is. So, okay. Well, it's been 3.5 hours.
Oh my gosh. Really?
There's plenty more to talk about, but we got to cut it off somewhere. I'm getting hungry, so I don't want to impose any further upon you guys. But let's go ahead and go back to our topic list and see if there's any big ones that we missed that we should maybe just hit real quick.
I have 2 notes.
Go ahead.
Yeah? Okay. Well, my first one is basically just going back on, once again, the sins of the father. And if, like, it seems to be like a generation for Lannisters, a generation of a hard man, a weak son, hard man, weak son, or just hard, weak, right? So if the order had been that Tywin was more like Tytos, not that he was Titus, but more of like that amiable, laughing lion type of Lannister archetype. Like, how would that inform on Jaime, Cersei, and Tyrion? And I said that if Tywin had the disposition of Titus, that Tyrion would be less clever because he wouldn't have to live up to, like, I'm useful in this way. I can't fight. I can't do this, but he's proving all this stuff to Tywin. But if he had Tytos as a father, he would just be loved and accepted. So I think that would make him less clever, maybe just like a drunk buffoon type. And then Jaime would not be in the Kingsguard. He'd be a middling fighter. And Cersei would not have the ambition to want to be queen, and I think that Cersei and Jaime would have ended up together, like married, because I don't see Titus going against them. If Titus's kids come up to him and said, "But Daddy, we're in love," he'll let them be. I think so. I think it's interesting to think of just how important Tywin is, how his personality has made these three kids. I just want to know what you guys think about that. Like, how much of the three kids' personality is not their own, and like, what do you think they would be like if they would have had the inverse father?
I think it's
Well, you'd have to think about. I struggle with hypotheticals sometimes, but you'd have to think about what makes each one who they are. So, like with Jaime,
But it's
that,
Tywin for all three of them.
I think
That
50.
what makes them who they are.
But I'm saying with Jaime, I don't know that it's Tywin that makes him who he is. It's more about that realizing how, because he dreams of being a knight and then finds out that like everything he was raised to believe is kind of false. That's, I think, what makes his character. I don't know that that has as much to do with Tywin. I think it's Tyrion and Cersei who are more directly the result of Tywin's mistreatment and bad parenting. But I'm just thinking out loud. This is not a prepared answer.
I think it's definitely true that it's Tyrion and Cersei who were more directly the result of Tywin. Tyrion largely through trauma, and Cersei largely because she wanted to be as respected and wanted people to like obey her like they do with Tywin, etc. With Jaime, it's definitely less, and it's indirect, but I think it's there in the way that he's kind of turned everything into a joke because it plays into the same theme of Tywin hating to be laughed at. Whereas Jaime has taken that and handled it very differently, but it's still kind of a focus with him.
And Tyrion and Cersei also are very bent on revenge, as we've seen today. Where Jaime, I don't know, that's not really. Yeah.
I guess for me, I just could see Tywin being like, Jaime, you're my firstborn son. You got to carry the family line. Get out there and train, and you better be good. No son of mine is going to be a coward. Huh?
He's Mufasa.
But then on the other hand, look at how Tywin responded to being raised by Tytos. He saw his father's weakness, and it encouraged him to be hard before his time. Like when he was 12, he was standing up and decrying the Rains and Castameres and other things, and he did the Rains and Castameres when he was a teenager. That was like well before he became even Lord of Casterly Rock. So he's hyper aggressive from the beginning because of how his dad is. So with the nature and nurture thing, it's like a combination of the circumstances the parent creates and then how each personality responds to it. So it's kind of a little different each time. But as a writer, that's what George or any writer is having fun doing, is saying, well, what might one type of person respond to the situation with, and how would a different type of person respond to the same situation?
The same situation. That's good. That's good. I like that. I like that.
So it's a good question. I don't know if I answered it directly as far as the way you framed it, but yeah, it's a good exercise to think about how much is nature versus nurture with each character. Absolutely.
Well, and Tywin coming back strong after Tytos, it's really how Mufasa made a very strong family at Pride Rock, Casterly Rock. And, he really does look past all of the faults of Jaime. Like he sees him, he's very good martially. And so he just thinks of him as like, oh, wow, he's the perfect son. He's this, perfect Lannister archetype. He's going to be an amazing ruler. And he kind of, misses the thread where not only does he have faults that would prevent him from being a good ruler, but he literally doesn't want to be. And he joins the Kingsguard. That's what he wants to be. And Tywin had no idea that any of that was going on. And he still has not internalized it. He's not okay with it. He's thinking of removing.
So
Jaime
that would have been a good scene to pull, is Jaime and his falling out with Tywin. But we do remember the scene, and you're bringing it up in a good context, which is just, Tywin, much like Corlys, thinking that maybe Laenor will just go straight if he's with a hot enough babe. It's like, no, Jaime doesn't want to be Lord of Casterly Rock. He wants to be a knight. That's what he wants to be. And he's completely caught up and, again, broken by the hollowness of knighthood that's been exposed to him. So, yeah, Tywin still doesn't get it. He's like, well, of course you're going to renounce your spot of the Kingsguard to be Lord of Casterly Rock. I mean, Robert's dead now, right? And he's like, no, I swore an oath. I'm a Kingsguard. So, yeah.
He's like, but you have one hand. He's like, that's fine. I still want to do it. Yeah.
I can smack people with it.
Yeah, what are your
Sean,
what are your thoughts on that scene, Nettles and then Sean? Because that is one we definitely should talk about.
Yeah, I know it kind of just touches on a little bit, maybe of hubris that we talked about before. Just like Tywin, like being so consumed with himself that he doesn't know his kids. He doesn't even know like what Jaime's number one goal is, which is like to feel needed, but not in the way of being a ruler and telling people what to do, but to serve. Jaime wants to serve.
He likes strong women. Yeah.
And
Sean,
he
your
doesn't.
thoughts?
All right. Well, and that's to your point about them being like above kings and thinking of themselves so highly, is he can't stomach the fact that his son is essentially a servant.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a good one.
No.
I think that's part of it. And there are some parallels with Sam and Randall Tarley that have come up a couple times. Actually,
Yeah.
I've thought of them.
It's inverse, but the same thing is going on.
It's the same thing. You have a hard parent who yields a soft offspring.
Yeah, right. Jaime is soft in certain ways. And then, of course, Randall was threatening to arrange a hunting accident for Sam. And that seems to be what Tywin was doing at the Red Fork with Tyrion. So that was the other thing I was thinking of.
And I've thought for a long time that Jaime ends up the series in a black cloak somehow. Like I think of him as, well, either whether it ends up he's leading the Brotherhood Without Banners, where they're basically, parallel to the Night's Watch, or whether he's in the actual Night's Watch, he's going to be fighting the others, which is a very Night's Watch role in the way, in the way that Sam is.
And it makes sense because it's like, how would a character like Jaime, like he needs to learn humility, right? Like that's one of these Lannisters does, right? I mean, it's the whole idea of them being lions is that they're prideful. They're rich lions full of pride. So
they're also literally a pride.
Yes, a pride of lions.
Yes. But it also shows that it takes the end of the world, like a huge thing, to show Lannister's humility. Like if Jaime goes to the wall, to fight off the walkers to earn humility, it's like, dang, it took that much. Okay, I have one more thing.
Yeah, you don't hear about a lot of Lannisters having joined the Watch, do you? Go ahead, Nettles.
Oh yeah. So my last thing I had in my quotes is that is the color green. Like we know Lannister colors are red and gold, and there's something to be said about houses that have gold in their colors. It means that they're always reaching and grasping for the throne. Like the Tyrells, like the Baratheons. These are two houses that we're seeing in the storyline who have squirmed their way to the throne, basically, right? Because they have gold. Same thing as the Greyjoys. They're always declaring themselves kings because they think that they're kings. And now we have the Lannisters with red and gold. But let's not talk about that. We're talking about the color green, which is a genetic trait that the Lannisters have as their eye color. And what made me think of the color green is that passage we were reading where Jaime was saying that Cersei looked so beautiful against that green light. And green, like when she burned the Tower of the Hand, and green is also the color of envy, which is, I think, another Lannister genetic trait, because envy is what's fueling them. You have these people, even Lan the Clever. Lan the Clever must have been high up. These people who
what's your axe to grind against Lan the Clever? I'm kidding. Go ahead.
No, I like him. I
doesn't
just
sound like it.
She's a Casterly fan.
I'm just saying that, like George R.R. Martin, I think he's repeating the original bloodlines with the original bloodlines. And the last
I'm
bloodline.
Just teasing. I'm just teasing.
No. But like, it's these people that have everything and they should be content, which I think Lan should have been content. But there's something in them that still grasps for more, and it's that envy. So like him seeing that Cersei's envy is the male reproductive member. Tyrion envies health, maybe full health, like height and physical prowess. Jaime probably envies freedom, like
Arthur Dayne.
Arthur, you think he wants to be Arthur Dayne?
Well,
Oh,
what
yeah.
he wants,
That is-
he wants to have, he wants his dream back. Well, I don't think this qualifies as envy per se. I love your points that you're making. I think that Jaime, once again, is a little different than all the rest of the family. Arthur Dayne, I love that you brought that up, because Arthur Dayne somehow is remembered as this perfect knight. And so Jaime's like, oh, I wanted to be that, but somehow I ended up the smiling knight. The thing is, Arthur Dayne was facilitating Ares too. So like he may not be all he's cracked up to be either. But to get back to your original point, Nettles, because I think it's excellent, you're right. And the point of the archetypes is to set the tone for the house. And you're right that Lan the Clever is a usurper who steals someone else's inheritance. And then furthermore, Jacob and Esau is being referenced with the birth of Jaime and Cersei, with Jaime grabbing Cersei's heel. That's a specific reference to Jacob and Esau. And of course, Jacob stole Esau his birthright, the older brother's birthright. And so Cersei is the older one, but Jaime, the younger one, has the birthright because he's male, and Cersei feels as though it is stolen from her. So George is definitely playing with the idea of stealing and grasping and reaching, which is all envy. That's very perceptive, given that they are so rich and powerful. You have to look hard to see the envy, but they're not the type of rich people that are secure in their wealth, are they? No, they're constantly needing to prove it and show it and display it ostentatiously.
Well, and another big thing is you're talking about the pairing of this gold and green, and there's a reason for it. It's classic Oak King colors, where you have the green of the oak, of the trees, of the forest, etc., and you have the sun, because they're a form of Sun King.
But then the blood red.
Yeah, that too. Well, and the thing is you see it played over and over again. One of the really good places you see it is House Rowan. They're from Golden Grove. Their sigil is a golden tree, which is supposed to be green. And in some of the stories, Lan the Clever is a son of the founder of House Rowan of Golden Grove. So like the connection there is very purposeful, and you're always going to see that gold paired with green, and it's not a coincidence.
Yeah, no, it's the Summer King colors. They're everywhere paired together. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say it's not a coincidence that the Lannisters are front and center every time they mess with wildfire. It's Tyrion messing with it. It's Cersei messing with it. Jaime's the one who stabs the Grand Pyromancer. Like, you have to go back to Aegon the Unworthy to find wildfire where the Lannisters are not directly involved.
And so essentially, I think that what's going on is, with the blood red, if we're going to do symbolism, goddammit, then yeah, the green and gold is the Summer King. Like, that's like the original green weirwoods and stuff. And so the current bloody weirwoods are a winter aligned tree. So that's just the death transformation of the tree. So Lannisters are kind of right in the middle of that. They are solar kings, but they're always doing corrupting stuff. So they're showing us this Solar King's downfall. And that's why you have green and gold with the red creeping in. But let's go ahead and wrap this up here at 4 hours. Thank you guys very much for joining me. You've both been a treat. The chat has enjoyed you very much. How would everyone have turned out if Joanna lived and Tywin died? More normal is the answer. Yeah. Like, more normal. Yeah. Tywin would have been less psychotic. They would have had a mother. Tyrion would have been a lot better off because he would have gotten a mother's love. Yeah.
Yeah. Studies shows that a 2-parent household is always better than a single-parent household.
Definitely less incest, Elia Stark says.
No, because the incest was there when Joanna was alive. Joanna couldn't stop that.
She
they were gonna do the incest.
She did tell them. She wrote a very strongly worded letter and separated them a little bit.
Sternly worded email.
What are you gonna do?
So guys, now I don't think we will do a part 2 just because like it would be too hard for me to figure out what we've talked about and rope off the rest and make it like there's plenty more to talk about. But yeah, I've got pretty much all the videos and live streams from here out until House of the Dragon season planned out, and then we'll be doing House of the Dragon. So we've only got like just over a month, about 5 weeks until House of the Dragon, so it's gonna go fast.
It is, yeah, it's already going fast.
Yeah. So thank you, Nettles. Subscribe to Girl Nettles. on YouTube. And thank you, Sean, who will soon have a YouTube channel to.
Yeah. It's Hero with 1,000 Voices is going to be the name of the channel. I've already said it. So, but yeah, I'll have some videos up soon. Very happy to be here. Nettles, you were great. David, thank you. First time, but yeah, it was great to be here.
Very much appreciate you and your fantastic Oberyn, Tywin, Tyrion, and Jaime. So.
And Pycelle.
And Pycelle, yes, before I stole him from you.
At some point.
I got jealous. I was like, no, I can gel. I want to gel.
Yeah, I think just to kind of wrap up I think the most important quote we read here today, in my opinion, is when Tywin says, "A victory is a victory," because it just sums up the Lannister everything, their swag, how they think, how they make their decisions. Is just a victory is a victory.
It's the short one-line history summations that hide all this blood and horror. It's just like, and Tywin won.
Yeah.
And the victory doesn't matter. It's about a Pyrrhic victory, and of course, Cersei's out here burning shit all the time. Like she burns a hand, which hands again. Sorry.
And I think
and Sean, we will have you on. I will have you back on when we are allowed to talk symbolism, Sean. A different time.
I know. I accrued some violations on this stream.
You did.
I'll pay them, but yeah.
To the wall. We're sending you to the wall. Very safe journey, by the way, from here to the wall. No accidents at all. All right. Yes. Right on. Thank you guys. Appreciate y'all. And I'm gonna go get some food and take care of my birds. So, cheers. And I'll see you next Sunday with a stream.
Awesome.